News 4 Jax starts right now with a breaking news alert.
Tracking tropical storm Ian, that is. We made landfall in Florida as a Category 4 hurricane before weakening. Yeah, it's weaker, but it wreaked havoc across our state. Take a look at this video out of Orlando today where Ian's heavy rains have saturated the ground and left flooded streets and highways behind. The storm also bringing flooding to our area. Take a look at St. Augustine, the ancient city already prone to flood problems and water problems, and now going through this. Flagler County also feeling Ian's impacts. You can see here tree removal, debris removal there. There's torrential rain just coming down. Here in Duval County, Jacksonville has been spared the worst of the storm's impact.
Even so, we are still seeing some flooding and damage. Take a look at this image. This is out of the downtown area sent to us by News 4 Jax reporter Eric Avignon. That large tree that has fallen on a car, a lot of reports of debris in the area, and conditions even worse at the beaches. We're taking a live look for you right now at Jax Beach, where that water is really churned up and that sky is gray. No one on the beach, which is what we are happy to see. We've got crews all across our area assessing Ian's damage. But first, let's go to Assistant Chief Meteorologist David Heckard. David, the storm should largely be over for us in a few hours.
Yeah, it's hard to believe on all of this, but it's looking more and more that way. In fact, our rain band that we've been tracking really all day long with Richard and Mark continues its slow push out into the Atlantic water. So the good news is if you're watching us and the rain is ended in your location, it's done. It's not going to come back around. The band is not going to pivot its way, off towards the west. We are done with the rainfall, and that's going to be some very good news, especially for some areas that have seen quite a bit of rainfall. We've been tracking it all day long here on Exact Track 4D, and we'll zoom in a little bit tighter into portions of Duval County. The rain is beginning to shut down now through the heart of the city of Jacksonville. In fact, you live out in west sections of Duval County out towards Caleb and Baldwin. You've been dry for a while now. You can see the rainfall really beginning to shut down downtown through the South Bank, even further south out towards Deerwood Club, near the St. John's Town Center. They're going to see some improvement as well. But just a few miles, and with these hurricanes and tropical storms, that's always the difference. Just a few miles, you can see a pretty good rain band that continues right along the coastline. It has not been a great day right along Atlantic Boulevard, including Neptune Beach, Jax Beach, JTB. You have been dealing with some heavy rainfall as well. John mentioned on his way in, he saw quite a bit of flooding in the intracoastal and some of the bays and marshes in that area. So we have seen some surge that has come in from the system. And that's going to be an issue, I think, for the remainder of the evening hours right at the coastline. We're still going to see elevated water levels and also pretty strong winds coming in off the Atlantic. So improvement, at least, though, if you live basically, at least in Metro Jacksonville, I think improvement, say, from I-295 and points to the west. The other big thing we want to talk about at 4 o'clock is the flooding threat, which continues in the St. Augustine area. We've been talking about this all day long. Downtown St. Augustine remains somewhat submerged right now, and we still have a flash flood warning in effect for central and southern St. Johns County. That goes until 9 o'clock. It actually extends back into Flagler County. Again, this is the area where it's picked up quite a bit of rainfall. Let me show you the updated rainfall totals here with this system, because it has been very impressive in some of our southern areas here. You get down towards Palm Coast. They've been talking about rainfall rates and rainfall totals here well over almost 8 inches now. Parts of St. Augustine talking about almost 8 inches as well here. So a very significant rain has occurred in northern Flagler, southern sections of St. Johns County. But again, even here, it will eventually fade away. It's just going to take a little bit longer as that rain band continues to lift its way off towards the towards the east into parts of the Atlantic. Winds have been an issue. In fact, here at the top of the hour, we've had sustained winds of 36, 23-mile-an-hour sustained winds in Jacksonville, and those gusts have been very strong, especially right at the coast. Mayport has seen wind gusts on again, off again all day long into the 50s and low 60s. We've had a 48-mile-an-hour wind gust last hour at the St. Augustine Airport, 32-mile-an-hour wind gusts in Jacksonville. And even if you're away from the actual rain band, out towards the west, still gusty with a 38-mile-an-hour gust in Lake City. We'll talk more about impacts and when the rain finally begins to completely move out of the beaches. That's coming up in about 15 minutes.
All right, David, we'll see you then. In St. Johns County, we do want to go to St. Augustine, the nation's oldest city, one of its soggiest right now.
Yeah, Scott Johnson is joining us live. Scott, this is different than the devastation on the West Coast, which added those hurricane winds. But this is always devastating to see St. Augustine underwater.
It is, Ken. I want to say that in the last 2 hours, I think the water level has gone down maybe a little. Here's how I know. You see all those cars right there parked in this property? I drove by a little while ago, and I would say the water was up to the top of their tires. I don't know how much damage there is, but the water is lower now, because when you drove back by, we could see they're parked in a reasonable way where the water's not doing too much damage. But I'm right next to the river right now. It runs right through St. Augustine, and so you can see it's kind of come over here into this property. Then if we could arc the camera around, you see across the street, we have more vehicles trying to brave some standing water that is becoming such a problem on all the roads all over St. Augustine in the old city. A lot of people are coming out trying to drive through this stuff. I've seen several cars stopped. A lot of people going out to try and maybe go in the old city and sightsee in just shorts with no shirt, no shoes. Well, they're getting the car stuck. So that's a reality a lot of people are dealing with. The wind is keeping up with us. It keeps pounding. It'll get better for a few minutes, and then 10 minutes later, you're being buffeted over again. So that's kind of what's going on right now. If you could bring the camera out here with me. So pan down there. So that's State Road 16. You know, one of the things with driving that you need to keep in mind is you will drive a road like this, and it looks great right there. And then all of a sudden you go, and all of a sudden you're in standing water, and you're going 40 miles an hour and don't realize it. And a lot of cars are stuck. I've seen people have to have their cars pushed out, people stranded unexpectedly, and a lot of people are trying with their bigger trucks to get through, having some luck. Oh dear, here comes the wind again. And then you have stuff like this as you are standing out here and you get those big gusts that just come and blow you over. But just a warning, I would wait out the storm. You don't need to come see it, but a lot of people frankly are, and they're waiting in this dirty water that is all over the nation's oldest city, from here to the parts where the business are, where you drive around, down to the historic district by the Bridge of Lions. We are live in St. Augustine. Scott Johnson, Channel 4, the local station.
Thank you, Scott. And for context, he was just on the other side. Right behind him was that San Sebastian River where Route 16 comes into US 1 going to Old St. Augustine.
And now we're going to go to Ann Maxwell, who is not too far away. She's standing by in Davis Shores, which is just over the Bridge of Lions. Ann?
Jen, we're seeing some standing water in the roadways here behind me down this road, as well as the road off here to our left. Officials really don't want people driving through standing water like this. You don't want to push water into people's houses. The storm drain here was pretty clogged. We just tried to get some of that debris off of there so the water can keep draining. This area under flash flood warning until 9 o'clock tonight. Very windy, very rainy. Some of these power lines out here blowing in the wind, making me a little bit nervous. The message from officials right now is stay home. They're worried about flooding. They've had hundreds of calls to the fire department throughout the county. They've made 40 rescues so far. Looks like he's going to turn around. Let's hope so. He is on camera. There we go. He's backing up. That's what you're supposed to do. As I was saying, they've had dozens of rescues helping people evacuate. People have been taken out in high water vehicles. They've got several boats, taken them to the fire station. They're driving people in vans to Pedro Menendez High School. Talked to a couple firefighters. They're telling me they are hearing high tide tonight is going to be even worse than it was earlier today. We saw the water splashing over the seawall down at the north end here of Anastasia Island. In the Davis Shores area, but still very dark, windy, rainy, bunch of businesses boarded up. We saw the water coming right up to the doorsteps of some businesses on A1A, just a couple blocks from here. That's receded some since then, but something we're still keeping an eye on. Again, warning people to stay home. Don't drive through the standing water on the roadway. Flooding, again, the main concern here. For now, we're reporting live from Davis Shores and Maxwell, Channel 4, the local station.
Thank you, Ann. And I have friends who live in that area. Several of them said, you know what, we're not going to take a chance. We are going to evacuate here. And they did that. Now, of course, waiting to find out what kind of damage they're going to see when they return to that Davis Shores area.
And we know that you live in St. Johns County there, so you're familiar with all of these areas. Your family's fine in the area where you are.
Yeah, our family lives not too far from where the sheriff's office is, in a little higher elevation, not quite as close to the intercoastal, but out there on the island, Anastasia Island and St. Augustine Beach out there, much more exposed, and certainly that Davis Shores area really prone to bad water damage in a storm like this.
All right, we are standing by, waiting to hear from Flagler County Sheriff Rick Staley. He is joining us on the phone right now. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us, Sheriff.
And Sheriff, I know you've been updating people on the radio a couple of times a day. Give us the latest here. Where are you having to send your resources right now in order to keep people safe? Looks like we may be having a hard time either hearing or him hearing us, but I'll tell you what, we will take a short commercial break, and then we'll be back and hopefully get in touch with the sheriff and be able to hear the latest update from him on Flagler County.
They've got class.
With underwear, anything but white is unacceptable.
In that case, I better change.
Stay classy with the Gentlemen of 2.5 Men.
Weeknights at 5 and 5:30 on CW17.
The Weather Authority. Pinpoint precision with Exact Track 4D. Dissecting storms, exposing dangerous conditions miles above the surface.
We continue tracking this storm, tropical storm, but boy, the hurricane effects and now all this rain in our area and the wind too.
And the good news is you see how it's on the edge going off into the ocean there.
Yeah,
David.
and I know if you live right along the coastline or downtown St. Augustine, it has not been a fun 24 hours or so there. But the good news is we are going to see some improvement here as we head to the evening and overnight. But I do want to stress it's going to take some time for that to occur, especially if you're watching us right along A1A and our coastal communities. In fact, Exact Track 4D, this is the rainfall total. I think it's doing a great job of kind of depicting where the problems are here today. And you can see those heavier rain bands really dumped a lot of rainfall as expected, kind of along into the east of I-95. You can almost draw a line here down towards the Nocatee area. That is where the rainfall really got intense, from about Nocatee, say right on County Road 210, from Nocatee just to the south near Roll Golf Village. That's where the rainfall, we're talking about some significant amounts of rain. That's why we have some significant issues around almost over 7.5 inches now in St. Augustine, almost 8 inches in southern St. Johns County. Palm Coast Radar indicating almost 8 inches. Flagler Beach, 8 inches. Even some of the rural sections of St. Johns County, we're talking about 7 inches plus here of rain. And because of all that, flash flood warning remains in effect. That's going to remain in effect until 9 o'clock. So if you're watching us in this area, please just stay home because the floodwaters are not going to be going anywhere for a while. As we move closer towards the 7 o'clock hour, it's going to get dark. You're not going to be out and about in this. Just stay home. Stay with us here on Channel 4. We're going to keep you updated for the rest of the afternoon and evening hours. Now let's go back to what's going on right now in Exact Track 4D, because this band is kind of the main show here, at least in parts of Northeast Florida. You can clearly see the band kind of lining up right along I-95. That's where the wind is. That's where some of the heavier rainfall is with this activity. You get out of that band, and it's working its way through Jacksonville as we speak. You're done with the rainfall. It is going to be improving conditions. I do want to stress, we are still going to see the winds out there. We're probably still going to see some tree limbs come down because of the winds, maybe even some smaller trees come down because of the rainfall we've picked up today. But I do think you get out of this rain band, that's when conditions are going to begin to improve, and we are slowly doing that here right in the heart of Duval County. In fact, let me zoom in super tight here on Exact Track 4D, and you can see we are finally beginning to dry out almost right along I-95 here. So downtown finally beginning to dry out, the airport's finally beginning to dry out, Edgewood's looking better, and then you get off towards the I-295 corridor, out towards St. John's Town Center. That's where they still have some lighter rainfall. And then a big jump here if you're on JTB from, say, 295 all the way out to Jacksonville Beach. Here we are with that yellow band. That's some more heavier activity. And that's going to be in place, we think, along our coastal communities for a while. So it's going to be kind of a bumpy dinner hour, it looks like, in some of our coastal beach communities in Duval County. Rainfall continues in St. Augustine. Not great news. We've already picked up a ton of rain. However, you can see the back edge now beginning to close in here towards the outlet malls where State Road 16 and 95 come together, and then the band extends all the way south into parts of the Palm Coast area. This band is trying to work its way a little bit further towards the north here into sections of southeast Georgia. We're beginning to see a little bit more rainfall in the Brunswick area, and you're probably going to be the last area to dry out here as the storm kind of pivots off towards the north and west across the region. So bottom line, it is going to get better weather. It's going to take some time for all that to occur. Great time lapse of the day here on Jacksonville Beach. You can clearly see not much sand at all. We're going to be talking about significant beach erosion across all of our area beaches, in addition to the very, very high surf and some of the surge that we have seen over the last several hours out there. And here's a live look right now out at Jacksonville Beach. Temperature is currently sitting around 71. Strong northerly winds at 39 miles per hour. Ian is still a high-end tropical storm with winds of 70 miles an hour. The center has moved offshore. I wouldn't say it's trying to form an eye, but the core is trying to kind of reorganize itself a little bit. And because it's going to be over the Gulf Stream for just a tiny amount of time, it may intensify a little bit further here into a hurricane. But don't get too wrapped up in that. That's not going to change our impacts here locally. We're still going to be talking about that rain band slowly moving offshore. And so we're going to be talking about better and better weather as the evening progresses. But it is going to be a Category 1 storm, it looks like, Thursday. Another landfall near the Charleston area Friday morning. And now notice how quickly Ian moves out of the area. So we're becoming more and more optimistic. Friday's going to end up being a pretty good day across much of the region. So some very, very good news there as we head into the Friday time period. And by the weekend, cleanup will be fully underway. And the good news is by then, Ian is just a remnant area of low pressure. Let's go through the planning forecast here as we head into tomorrow. Again, improving conditions out there. Going to keep a 40% rain chance. That's mainly going to be in the early morning hours. I think most of Friday ends up being dry with high temperatures leveling off, it looks like, into the mid-70s. Weekend still looks really good out there. We'll be low to mid-80s. It looks like Saturday and Sunday. Still a bit of a breeze. And one thing we're going to have to keep an eye on here, especially on Saturday, is because we've had so much wet soil and because the branches are going to be kind of soggy, can't rule out maybe, just even with a strong breeze out there, some limbs kind of coming down out there. And then next week's looking really nice with just a rain chance heading into Wednesday and Thursday. But boy, the headline today has been in our coastal areas, including the rain and the surge kind of piling up in parts of the region. I know John Gahn has much more on that and what he saw earlier in his trip into the intracoastal. John?
And we're going to get to John in just a moment. We've got some images that John shared with us, but not quite ready to share yet. Thank you, David. All right, so from our region, Flagler County has been the closest to Tropical Storm Ian's fierce wind and relentless rains. So we're connecting right now with Flagler Sheriff Rick Staley on the phone.
Yes, Sheriff, thank you so much. We tried to connect with you just a minute ago. We've got the technology updated now, so we are good to go. You've been updating people, Sheriff, on the radio twice a day. So give us the latest. Where are you having to send your resources right now to keep people safe there?
Well, I just got back from looking at the community actually on our Bear Island, and the Bear Island is really getting hammered because that's the area that's had the sustained tropical wind storms. We've had breaches of the dunes with the ocean coming into and on A1A, significantly up in our northern area, marine land. The harbor at marine land is basically including the parking lot and part of A1A now. The Flagler Beach Pier is probably seeing the end of its life from this storm. Piece of it clearly has already been taken down, and with the storm still churning out there and hitting the coastline, it's probably not going to survive this storm after 100+ years of being around. The west side, we're seeing flooding on the west side, an area known as Mondex or Daytona North, and some of the roads are, because they're mostly dirt roads, are very impassable and dangerous. So power lines are down in some areas. We have about 46,000 residents without power right now. There's shingles off of roofs, siding that's been blowing down. So it might only be a tropical storm when officially out in Flagler Beach and parts of Flagler County, but it's acting like a low-level Hurricane 1 from the damage that we're seeing.
Sheriff, thank you. We have that picture that you sent to us of the Flagler Beach Pier. We want to show that to folks while we're talking to you. And you can see the damage from this. Take a look. You can basically the pier is gone there at the end. And you see how high the water has risen. We thank you as well as
Chief.
Yes.
The photo was Chief Downey from Flagler Beach. And my understanding is there's a new photo, I haven't seen it yet, where the pier is actually underwater now.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
We saw that just a few years ago, the damage in Jacksonville Beach to the pier there. And there's something that just attaches to your identity as a beach community, that pier that goes out there. And this is going to be painful for a lot of people to go through whatever's going to happen there. Sheriff, have you been able to respond to people who are dealing with damage? And you talked about some of the destruction that you're already hearing about.
So we have a lot of trees down. My emergency response team has been responding to those areas, cutting paths through. So power companies and public safety vehicles can get through. Really, the assessment's going to really come more tomorrow after Eon is gone. But we still are handling calls. We're still making arrests. We had a few people that didn't want to behave, so they wrote out Hurricane Ian in the Green Roof Inn, which is our county jail. And we have a curfew that goes into effect tonight again at 8 p.m., over at 7 a.m., and then we'll reassess whether or not we need a curfew on Friday.
I want to ask you about that, but we also want to show the video that you posted on Twitter just of some of the damage. This was a construction area that some of the scaffolding has fallen down, and you can see as this image in the video goes around the side of this building, all of that scaffolding is just sticking out like knives, just, very, very dangerous situation. But you mentioned having to make arrests. Are you seeing that people are taking advantage of this situation with looting and other things like that?
No, we've not had any of that. I have about 50 deputy sheriffs on duty every 12 hours. So we have saturated the community. The arrests that we've had have been domestic violence or an individual that committed a hit and run traffic crash that would not cooperate with our deputies, was ultimately taken down and arrested with the use of a taser. So those are what we're seeing so far. My warning to any criminal element that wants to try to take advantage of our residents because of Hurricane Ian, they will ride out the rest of Ian and the rest of this storm in the county jail. They might go there wet, but we're going to arrest them.
Sheriff Rick Staley from Flagler County. We're continuing to monitor what's happening there, and we we appreciate your continued updates from what's going on down there. Lots of damage and a lot of stuff that you're trying to deal with. Sheriff Staley, thank you for being with us right now.
Right, and I'm hoping the producers will allow us. We only have a short amount of time because the St. Johns County Sheriff is on standby. He's got to get going and only has a couple of minutes with us. Hopefully we can speak with him now, Rob Hardwick. Is that okay? Can we talk with him?
Okay, all right, we're going to take a
stand by.
short commercial break, and then we'll thank you, Sheriff Staley, and then we'll get to Sheriff Hardwick in St. Johns County when we come back.
You need to take safety right now.
Tracking hurricanes.
It's going to pick it up a notch.
Chief Meteorologist John Gahn and the Weather Authority, the people you rely on for trustworthy alerts.
That is Tropical Storm.
Exact Track 4D, advanced accuracy.
Exact Track 4D now indicating a possible tornado.
Tracking every hurricane miles beyond local shores, equipping you with more precious time to prepare your family.
Not done yet.
The Weather Authority, always watching, always tracking hurricanes.
St. Johns County seeing some of the harshest effects in our area from Tropical Storm Ian, and that includes severe flooding in the ancient city and other parts of St. Augustine.
Yes, joining us live right now, St. Johns County Sheriff Rob Hardwick. Sheriff, thank you for joining us and taking the time. You've lived and worked in the heart of the county for years, and what areas are you seeing the most need for help from emergency responders?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks for having me on. We're actually seeing a lot of need again, the coastal, 42 miles of coastal beaches, and actually downtown St. Augustine, Hastings area, and our southern St. Johns County area, which is known as Flagler Estate. So a little bit of sporadic. It's kind of all over St. Johns County based on where the flooding is at, of course, and loss of power.
Yeah, Sheriff, we let people know how they can help when disasters arrive, but sometimes that's by doing nothing. So what's your word to people about leaving their homes right now?
You know, this is something, we got a little bit of break in the storm, literally with the tide, the next high tide at 11:29 p.m. So we're asking you if there's a safe place you can go within a short distance in the mainland side, then now's the time to go ahead and move. Again, the second round of this evening is going to be just as big, if not bigger, with the flooding. So we're asking you to go ahead and move now if you can.
Sheriff, there is a flash flood warning in place for St. Augustine until 9 p.m. We've seen A1A South flooded over. There are places where people clearly should not take any chances driving, walking. Are you having to rescue drivers or other people from flooded or washed out roadways?
Yes, ma'am. All the agencies here in St. Johns County Sheriff's Office, St. Augustine Police Department, St. Augustine Beach Police Department, and St. Johns County Fire and Rescue and St. Augustine Fire have been busy all afternoon with rescues of people that are driving in areas which they think are a little bit maybe not as deep as it actually is meant to be. And when they drive through it, the actual vehicles are. And again, this is taking our resources away when they can be out actually doing emergency rescues and stuff for our citizens that actually need the resources in an emergency.
Well, Sheriff, let me ask you about that. I was stunned to see the report that just after midnight, somebody was being stopped or a traffic stop was happening and they shot a shotgun at one of your deputies. First, how is your deputy doing? And what would you, this has just had to be shocking to you as well.
Sure. Actually, we were actually out last night. We were actually involved in the incident. It came out as a be on the lookout for a vehicle that actually was involved in a road rage incident that actually shot another vehicle. Our deputy sheriff immediately found the vehicle northbound on US 1. He got behind the vehicle and initiated a traffic stop. The passenger of the vehicle actually hung out of the vehicle with a shotgun and shot around behind. It actually shot the windshield in the same area of our deputy's head, basically. Wow. Our deputies, along with myself, pursued the vehicle, performed a pit on the vehicle. The vehicle subject was taken to custody, and he's in our custody as we speak today, charged with multiple attempted murder on law enforcement and other individuals.
Your deputy, how is the deputy doing? Any injuries?
He's doing good. No injuries at all, actually. No injuries on our side of the house at all in the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office, and both suspects are in custody. He's doing good. I spoke to him today. It's one of those things that are sometimes you actually you take this job for granted, you take life for granted, and he's doing well. He's home with his wife and his baby, and he's doing great. So he's glad we actually captured the suspect, and it was all him, actually. He stayed persistent and continued the mission and captured the suspect with us.
Sheriff, we know we're getting ready to go, but we wanted to ask you, are you doing all sorts of rescues? Are you doing water rescues? Are you having to conduct rescues from homes? What type of rescuing is going on?
Yep. So it's actually all the above, Joy. We're having a lot of people that are just stuck in water, or actually they're in their house and they didn't think the water was going to be that high. We also have a lot of trees, of course, as the ground is saturated. And, we're dealing with our normal crashes and our normal domestic violence. So it's really been a kind of a smorgasbord of different calls for service. So, again, all the agencies in St. Johns County do the best we can in the amount of time we have. So we appreciate everybody's patience.
And Sheriff, I know you guys are all pulling together to try and make sure people are safe. Thank you for your efforts there. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate you too as well. Have a great night.
So Ian isn't even all the way out of Florida yet, but people already hitting the beach.
Take a look at this. Daring surfers in Cocoa Beach. Can you see them there to the right of that pier? Not the safest thing right now. We will be right back with a look at when we can expect the storm just to be out of our area.
Want to spread the word about your favorite local hangout? Or warn your neighbors about risky storm damage? Maybe you're looking for tonight's photo-worthy feast or need to track down important supplies. Do it all and more with Snapjacks. I can do it right now. Go to your News4Jax Insider account or join for free on News4Jax.com. Click the Snapjacks button, upload your photo, and tell your fellow insiders where you snapped it. Become a News4Jax Insider for free and start sharing photos on Snapjacks today.
News4Jax starts right now with a breaking news alert.
All All right, thanks for continuing to stay with us here as we track Tropical Storm Ian. New video is coming in from a viewer. He tells us this is a piece of the Flagler Beach Pier that has been ripped off in the storm.
You heard Sheriff Staley talking about the pier likely seeing its last days, and this is just a piece of it as this viewer pans over to try to find some more of that debris. Also, a tree blown over in Spring Park. This also, as it's happening, wow, sent to us by a viewer, clearly from their surveillance camera on their home. Dangerous situation out there, so be careful.
Let's go to Cocoa Beach to our south and south of where the storm is, but you can see here that these are live pictures. Cocoa Beach Pier, surfers are already out there, and they've been out since at least 2 p.m., the last 2.5 hours, trying to catch waves as that storm has moved on to the north.
The Weather Authority has got you covered all through this storm and even after it passes, helping us with the aftermath and what we can expect. As you see, our teams are fanned out throughout the area. We're going to go right now to Assistant Chief Meteorologist David Heckard, who has got the very latest for us on Ian. David?
Yeah, Joy, and I think this half hour we're going to take a wider perspective here of Ian. So the core of the system, what's left of it, has now firmly moved itself off the Florida Peninsula, sitting right here. It is attempting to maybe intensify a little bit further, but one key point here, and we talked about this the last couple of days, this more eastward track is very, very favorable for Northeast Florida. I know if you live right along the coastline, it doesn't feel like it, but I want you to notice here this lightning that is popping up. What's happening is the Gulf Stream, which is a band of very warm water that heads all the way up into parts of Europe, the system's beginning to interact with that, and we are seeing some pretty intense convection here on our satellite imagery right up into portions of the Atlantic water. So although it's not great out there now, it could be a lot worse here with this activity. And the storm may attempt to organize a little bit further, but we're becoming more and more certain the really intense rain, the really intense wind's going to stay out into portions of the Atlantic. Now let's get back here to Exact Track 4D here. We'll show you where the rain band is right now, because that's kind of been the storyline really all day long, is where the exact track of this rain band is across the region. And it is slowly beginning to move its way out of the I-95 corridor here in the 4 o'clock hour. So that's some great news. And we talked about this in the 3 o'clock hour. Once the rain ends in your neighborhood, we're pretty confident it's it for the night. It's not going to come back, with maybe the exception of right up against the beaches here. But you can clearly see the band is slowly beginning to churn its way eastward. We'll zoom in one more time here along the I-95 corridor. You can see in the Kingsland area, the rain is beginning to wind down a little bit. We can also see that down into parts of Nassau County, out towards the I-95 corridor, down to some sprinkles. Really seeing improvement now in metropolitan Jacksonville. In fact, the rainfall pretty much done with. Lake Forest, downtown Jacksonville, south side estates now seeing improvement, and the rainfall picks up a little bit out towards the I-295 corridor, down towards 9B, and then just you go a few miles, and that's where we got some steadier rain. That's where the winds are still kind of howling at times. Right along A1A here, Atlantic Beach, Neptune Beach, Jacksonville Beach, all the way down towards Ponte Vedra and Sawgrass. That's where some of the worst weather has been in the metro area, and it's going to continue to be that way for the evening hours. And then down towards the south in St. Augustine, you've seen the footage over the last several hours of the big flooding there. Still a flood warning, or flash flood warning, excuse me, until 9 o'clock. So especially down in St. Johns County, northern sections of Flagler County, just a good evening to stay inside and let this storm pass your area. And we do think eventually later on this evening, a lot of this activity will begin to fade away. Something else John and I have been talking about is the cool air that's kind of being wrapped in with this system. Look at the Jacksonville airport. It is 60 degrees right now. Palatka is down to 57, so it's going to end up being jacket weather here for parts of the metro area, I think, heading to the evening hours, as again, what's going to happen is this cold air is just going to kind of pivot its way across the area. We may actually begin to warm back up a little bit later into the evening hours. John and I will be back much more on Ian coming up in about 15 minutes.
Thank you, David. And want to give you some images here. These are live pictures from our Jacksonville Beach Tower cam. You can see what's happening out on their coast there. We've shown you a time lapse earlier this hour of what's been happening, and certainly expect to have beach erosion here.
All right, we are going to go now to News4Jax reporter Eric Avignon. He is in St. Augustine, which is where a lot of our focus has been because of what you see behind him, that flooding. Eric.
Yeah, we just had a big wave just come right through here. We're right off the Ponce de Leon and Carrera Street at that corner here, but this is Carrera Street. Look at these large vehicles that are trying to get through here. Just moments ago, we saw a water rescue unfold right here. The gentleman that owns this blue vehicle right here, just a good Samaritan. He helped the folks that were in this Jeep Cherokee right here. They got stuck in the water and could not get out. They were trying to make their way through this deep flood water here off of Carrera. The water was up above the front hood. By the time he got to about right here, because that's as we were pulling up, the vehicle just stopped. It just stalled. And this gentleman here is a good Samaritan. He came out and he helped these folks get out of the water. So that's a good thing. But if we can swing the camera this way here, I'm going to just show you something right here. This water, this is about as far as we're going to go with all of this, because obviously, with vehicles coming through here, they're causing waves. There's another vehicle that just went down there, but that's a very tall vehicle. You see this gentleman here, he's trying to get through the street here with all this water. He's got his bicycle, but let me show you something else. So we can swing the camera this way. I'm gonna just walk it over this way a little bit, just kind of get out of this street. There's another street. Just remember, all of these streets lead to downtown St. Augustine, and so we were trying to get to to downtown St. Augustine, but we can't get through because pretty much every street is flooded, and the police have a lot of these streets blocked off. But when we arrived here, couldn't help but notice there were little kids, waist deep in the water right there off that street. I'm not sure what street that is. I believe that's Malaga Street. I can't pronounce that quite because I can't see it all the way, but Malaga Street. And they were just walking through this. So we're going to just walk this down. We haven't had a chance to go through here yet. I know for a while there were some police officers that were blocking this off. And again, we're just being really careful about where we go, because at some point, some of these little areas can just drop off really quick. Like over there, we saw a drop off of at least 4 feet. We're going to come through here, and we're going to, if we can bring you over here just a little bit, we're going to take you down this way, Malaga Street. Look at that. There's still people trying to get through down there. We have watched the step there. Yeah, again, like we said earlier on, there are parts where the street kind of drops off, so the water gets a little bit deeper. But this is what you encounter if you try to get into downtown St. Augustine. It's almost impossible. Of course, we're going to have more on this coming up later throughout the evening. Eric Avier, Channel 4, the local station.
All right, Eric, thank you. Folks, we appreciate you sticking with us with our extended coverage as we continue to track Tropical Storm Ian. Now, we are checking on each local county to see what the impact is from the storm.
Yeah, Clay County Sheriff Michelle Cook is joining us right now. Sheriff, thank you for joining us. 2 big question marks when it comes to really what's happened with Ian. Are you seeing the kind of flooding that we worry about in our area? For instance, Black Creek, as I understand, that hasn't been as big a problem as we maybe feared it would be.
No, not yet. Now, we do have some localized flooding at Doctors Lake Marina. We've got some localized flooding at Spring Park and Green Cove Springs. We do expect Black Creek and some of the inland areas to see a little bit of flooding tonight as high tide comes in around 4 a.m. But we don't think it's going to be catastrophic. It's been described as sort of moderate flooding. So those folks who are used to getting flooded during storms like this can probably expect that tonight. We just need everybody to stay vigilant and stay inside.
I was going to say, Sheriff, a great reminder for everyone to stay inside, and a reminder to our viewers, the Clay County government webpage does have a place to report down trees, storm damage. What have your deputies responded to so far when it comes to damage? Are there trees, power lines?
Yeah, absolutely. Mostly isolated, but we have had our share of down trees and down power lines. We have responded to a reported drowning where our deputies jumped into the St. Johns River and actually pulled a man from the river earlier today. So we've been what I would describe as steady with our responses around Clay County.
Sheriff, are there any rescues underway anywhere in Clay County right now? I mean, we're seeing some of the images that you've shared there.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm not aware of any rescues right now, Kent, but what I will tell you is that we're starting to take a look at what resources we can send to Southwest Florida. We've been asked by the state to stand up a few teams, and so we're looking at that tonight. And if nothing changes in Clay County, we will be deploying our deputies to Lee County tomorrow morning.
That is incredible. Great sharing of resources there. Sheriff, is there anything that you want to say to the residents of Clay County? Any kind of reminders or anything that you're...
Join us in Random Jacks of Kindness, a year-long commitment to paying it forward with acts big and small. Sign the pledge on PositivelyJacks.com.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, and folks, stick with us. We are back right after a short break.
Our grand opening sale just got better at the all-new Butler Toyota Jacksonville. Fresh new inventory is arriving daily. Plus, during Toyota's Summer Starts Here event, get summer savings on every new and used car. A better experience. It's better at Butler.
Local stores loaded with those hard-to-find household essentials. Help families out and Snap It.
When your morning cup of coffee from your favorite cafe really hits the spot.
Planning a productive day with the Weather Authority app, maybe in the garden? Don't forget to Snap It.
Log in to news4jax.com and become a News4Jax insider for free. Then click Snapjacks and start uploading your photos today. Do it all and more with Snapjacks, Channel 4, the local station.
Exact Track 4D, the Weather Authority's secret weapon against severe storms. The most cutting-edge weather technology in Northeast Florida and South Georgia.
Tracking Ian through this next day of some of the damage and destruction that's going on because of the storm.
And right now, let's get a look at what is happening in our area with Assistant Chief Meteorologist David Hecker.
Yeah, we got two things going on here in downtown Jacksonville right now. This is our live camera here at our WJXT studios on the South Bank. You'll notice the wind still bouncing the camera around. I want to stress, even when the rain ends in your neighborhood, we're still going to have some wind. It's still going to be a good evening to stay indoors here because we cannot rule out tree branches coming down. We can't rule out some power outages and some power lines coming down just because of the wind. But all that being said, we are beginning to see the rainfall ending here on our South Bank weather camera looking over the downtown area. In fact, if you notice way off in the distance, some hints of a little bit of clearing out there. So some very good news, at least the threat for some flooding rains quickly diminishing in the city of Jacksonville. The second thing you're noticing, especially if you were here for Irma, right there in the center of your screen, that is a very, very full St. Johns River right now. In fact, we are seeing it at high tide. The good news, John just looked at this, is this is about as high as the St. Johns River is going to go. So I know if you are right downtown, right up against the river, you're keeping a very close eye on this. The good news is it looks like the river will begin to recede a little bit here in the next couple of hours. This is probably as high as we're going to see it, at least in the city proper. Other kind of bizarre thing is temperatures have gotten quite cool in the city. We're down to 60 out at the airport as actually Ian has drug in some cooler conditions. Jacksonville Beach, totally different storyline. We still got a lot of rainfall here, some high surf as well. Temperatures there hanging out around 71, still a strong northeasterly wind. Let's head right back into Exact Track 4D. We continue to track probably the biggest area of concern, which is the St. Augustine area where the downtown area still remains submerged. You're probably going to see that continuing here into the rest of the evening hours. The low tide cycle just was not able to draw that surge out. And we got another high tide coming up here, 11 o'clock. Midnight tonight, so it's going to be a long evening in downtown St. Augustine in the area that normally floods out there. And you can see along US 1 that rainfall continuing, but you get just to the west side of St. Augustine, out towards the outlet malls there around State Road 16, the rainfall is now quickly shutting down, so some good news there. And then up towards the north, as I've been mentioning here the last couple of hours, still seeing improvement kind of as the system's working from west to east. You've been dry for a while now out in the White House area, and the rain is beginning to shut down right along I-295 here out towards St. John's Town Center. Still, though, pretty good band of rain, but this band is beginning to just shove its way a little bit offshore, which means we're seeing the steadier, harder rains beginning to shut down more of a lighter rain. Still windy, still not great rain, but a little bit of an improvement here in some of our coastal communities right along Atlantic Beach, Neptune Beach. In fact, let's zoom in even tighter. You can see right there is A1A, right where my fingertip is. That is the coastline. So that band of heavier rain has successfully moved its way off towards the north, or off towards the east, excuse me. And then up into parts of southeast Georgia, we continue to see a little bit of this activity kind of hugging the coastline there. And in South Georgia, you're going to be stuck with the rain potentially for a little bit longer as, again, Ian continues to lift its way up towards the north. Winds have been a big storyline out there. You can see sustained winds in the teens, 20s, and 30s. We still have a 56-mile-an-hour wind gust in St. Augustine, 32-mile-an-hour wind gust in Jacksonville. And as I mentioned earlier, even if the rain ends, the wind isn't. In fact, we've had a 35-mile-an-hour gust last hour in Lake City, which has seen almost no rainfall today. Here's the 2 o'clock advisory on Ian. Winds remain at 70 miles an hour, gusts to 85. It's trying, and I'll emphasize the word trying, to reorganize now into portions of the Atlantic. And it is still forecast to become a hurricane here later on tonight. Don't get too caught up in that. Even if the system intensifies just a little bit, it's not going to become a significant change to our weather. Really, that just means instead of being a strong tropical storm, it's kind of a borderline Category 1 hurricane. And the system is going to continue to lift its way northward. In fact, Friday morning, landfall looks like near the Charleston area. Friday evening, it's up into parts of upstate South Carolina, into the mountains of North Carolina as we head into Saturday. So we're going to be talking about some rapid improvement heading into Friday, it looks like. Here's Futurecast at 9. I think by then the rain bands are going to be right up against the coastline, even maybe offshore at that point, again, with maybe the exception of South Georgia. Notice we get towards midnight, everything is out here in the Atlantic. We are still going to be stuck with some windy conditions, still may have some isolated power outages, especially right at the coastline. Heading to the morning hours, daybreak, you can see a good deal of cloud cover. There's still going to be some wind around, and the wind kind of slowly subsides as the day progresses. And watch what happens by the afternoon. Maybe dealing with a good deal of sunshine as we head into the back end of Friday, especially as we get towards 2, 3 o'clock. So just kind of hang in there next 12 hours or so, and then really nice conditions, or at least better conditions, get going heading into the Friday hour. Weekend, not too bad at all. Temperatures into the 80s. And next week looking pretty good. I promise it's going to be a lot quieter than this past week with high temperatures hanging out in the 70s and 80s across the air. Of course, one of the bigger headlines today not only has been the rainfall, but some of the surge. We've seen some areas filling up with water that we normally don't, including some of the bays inlets. Right along the intracoastal, it's been pretty dramatic on some of the area bridges. John was out earlier this afternoon, and he caught some of that video, and it is something to see if you haven't seen it in a while there, John.
Yeah, we haven't seen this in a long time. Yeah, with the nor'easters, Matthew, Irma, we have seen incredible flooding video, but to see with a tropical storm, and again, that's what Ian is at this point, this is looking back out from JTB. If you look back out here to the north, you can see the entire bay, if you will, and this is really not a bay. If you've fished here, I have. These are flats, and you can see the little tops of the flats out here where some of the redfish do tend to kind of go up and lay their eggs in the lake. But tonight we can see that this entire area, this is out there towards San Pablo area, off to the left here, completely underwater. Here's a view as you look a little back out towards the west on the intercoastal bridge on JTB. The water here just lapping up as high as we've seen it. And in fact, I don't know if I panned over to the far right, but it goes all the way back out towards the Sawgrass Marsh Landing area, seeing extreme tides here as well. The good news is this was at dead high tide, so I'm pretty convinced that the water's never got much higher than what you're seeing right in through here. And it also illustrates just how lucky we were once again. Remember, the rains in terms of the forecast of 10, 12, 15 inches never materialized in this area. Had we seen that kind of rainfall on top of the surge that is, being shown here as the tides were on the...
We've never had a story like this.
They're on the fast track to the truth.
You're terrified about these results.
I've always felt in my heart that she wasn't his.
No more questions.
The dates just didn't add up.
There's no way this baby could be anybody's but yours.
No more denials.
You're sure that Willie's the father?
He the daddy, he know that.
No more excuses.
You are the father. You are not the father.
Watch Maury.
Weekdays at 4 on CW17.
A little bit. We're going to focus on St. Augustine when we come back here in just a few minutes. As the news continues, David and I will be back here at 5, continue to wrap it up on Ian. We'll see you in a few minutes.
See when you show up, right?
The Weather Authority alerts faster than ever with Exact Track 4D.
All right, thank you for rejoining us with our Hurricane Ian continuing coverage. It's now a tropical storm. Take a look at these boats that were just flung along the shoreline here. This is at the Legacy Harbor Marina. Look at the destruction. Can you imagine the millions of dollars, these boats alone?
Again, over in Southwest Florida, and a council member in Fort Myers Beach, so that's on a nearby barrier island, estimating 90% of that town has been destroyed.
Gosh. We also have some more footage for you from Southwest Florida showing a home that caught fire during the storm. So not only is everyone dealing with downed trees, down power lines, but you've got gas lines as well. We don't know if that was the situation here, but all kinds of things are happening at this point. And this homeowner, this is what they are coming back to. And you can see the other homes around it not touched.
And there are a variety of reasons that homes obviously can catch fire. You don't know how it's related to the storm, but certainly seems like that's a probable cause somehow there.
All right, we have got a lot for you coming down the pipeline here. Jacksonville Mayor Lenny Curry is going to be giving us an update on Jacksonville's response to Hurricane Ian. At 5:05, we are going to bring that to you live.
And then we'll go to the state capitol in Tallahassee. Governor Ron DeSantis at 6 o'clock. We also plan to take that live. It'll be in Tallahassee and at the Emergency Operations Center.
All right, take a look at this video. This is in Spring Park. Watch this tree.
As it happens right there, and Joy, I think the guess is this is probably somebody's Ring doorbell or their surveillance video, but look at that person walking there.
Holy cow.
Right in the path of where that tree is about to come down. Thankfully not there when the tree comes down, but stunning video. When you have video like this, go ahead and upload it to Snapjacks, and you can see the lean, and then finally it just comes down right there.
Gosh, and right now more than 2.5 million people across the state of Florida don't have power. In Jacksonville, JEA is showing about 12,500 customers with no power.
Yeah, this is nighttime satellite imagery from NOAA showing how many people were without power. As we just mentioned right now, 2.5 million statewide don't have it. Clay Electric, by the way, reporting just under 20,000 customers without power. And when we spoke with the Flagler County Sheriff a few moments ago, he said upwards of 48,000 customers out of about 68,000 customers don't have power right now.
Folks, stay with us. Our coverage continues. We will be right back after this break.
Think as if it were you on the other side.
If I see something good around the country, we're adopting it.
It's hard. We are really, really close to a tipping point.
That is astronomically insane.
Solutionaries, the creative thinkers and doers working to make the world a better place. Subscribe at youtube.com/solutionaries.
News 4 Jax starts right now with a breaking news alert.
Incredible images from our St. Augustine sky cam. Downtown, underwater. You can't see any streets along the bayfront. This video is right before high tide as water crashed over the wall. You can see a boat bobbing in the background. Flagler County urged residents in several neighborhoods today to leave immediately because of significant flooding. We spoke with a man who was out in the storm checking on friends' businesses in Flagler.
You can't control Mother Nature. You know, Mother Nature controls all of us.
A fish camp in Crescent Beach in St. Johns County, surrounded by water. In southwest Florida, so far, more than 500 people have been rescued in Charlotte and Lee counties today. These are new aerials of Lee.
You want me to come out?
This is video of crews pulling people from a flooded car in Naples. Among the rescued, pets. You can see dogs being carried through floodwaters in Orlando. Governor Ron DeSantis said today this is basically a 500-year flood event. President Joe Biden says this could be the deadliest hurricane in Florida history. And this is a live look through our St. Augustine Beach sky cam at Guy Harvey Resort. This area is under a flash flood warning until 9 o'clock tonight. As of 3 o'clock today, nearly 2.7 million power outages have been reported in Florida as a result of Ian. And you're looking live in downtown Jacksonville, where Mayor Lenny Curry will hold a news conference in just a few minutes. Breaking just within the past 2 minutes, Ian is a hurricane again, taking aim at coastal Georgia and the Carolinas. There's also a flash flood warning in effect until 9 o'clock tonight for coastal areas of northern Flagler and southern St. Johns County.
Take a look at this, a new image we just got into the newsroom showing damage to the Flagler Beach Pier. This is from Flagler. We also learned Flagler County officials urging residents to limit their water use to emergency needs only so the overwhelmed sewer systems can catch up. Folks, we have crews all across our area. We begin with Chief Meteorologist John Gahn. He's got an update on where Ian, a hurricane, is now. John?
And the important detail here, despite the fact that it is strengthened a little bit, remember winds were 70 miles an hour. Now they've upped it up to 75 miles an hour. The fact is that this is now going to become a Carolina nightmare because, as we saw with Matthew, a weakening hurricane that passed us by. Remember, the comparison is not Irma for us. We saw very little flooding in the downtown area, although we got close here in the last hour. The reality of it is this is all about the coastal areas and the impacts that we've seen from St. Augustine through the downtown area of St. Augustine all the way up the coast in towards, let's say, Brunswick, Georgia over the next 4 or 5 hours. It'll be because of what's happening just out to the east of us. There goes the core of the storm. Now, again, the core is broken up, so we don't have a classic hurricane look. That was a classic hurricane look on the satellite picture, but no longer. But the winds now are wrapping around the storm, and especially just out to the east of us, we're finding those winds close to hurricane strength, and that's why the Hurricane Center has upgraded this to 75 mile an hour Category 1 Hurricane Ian. By 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, just out there towards the Charleston area. And like Matthew, we'll be taking a track just along and around I-95 in South Carolina. Why is that a big deal? Well, up to 20 inches of rain fell in that area. Now, you might recall with Matthew here locally, it was concentrated there along our beaches. We had flooding along Jacksonville Beach. Now, of course, what happened to the pier was pretty much done. But at the same time, we only had 6 inches of rain. By the time it got into the Carolinas, Matthew just unloaded. And that may be the case for the folks there to the north of us. Here's Exact Track 4D right now. As we look back out here to the north of town, we can see the bands of rain. There's Brunswick, Georgia. Let me come closer to home. I-95, still seeing the rains out there. But it literally will be from Sea Island all the way from the Altamaha Sound southward all the way out here towards Jackson Beach down to St. Augustine. These yellow bands of rain will continuously come on shore, and as they do so, I don't think it's going to wrap up between now and around 8 o'clock. It may take to 10 o'clock before we start to see some real improvement. What are we looking at here? These are the current tidal situations. This is at Mayport, got to around 7.5 feet. What that means here is that we once again just came almost to the point of flooding. Here's Mayor Curry.
Good afternoon. As of 5 p.m., Ian is still about 5 hours southeast of Duval County and is expected to be just over 100 miles due east of Jacksonville around 10 p.m. tonight. While thankfully the rainfall we anticipated is much lighter than expected, there's still a chance for flooding, strong winds, power outages, beach erosion, and tornadoes. As of just a few moments ago, JEA reports we have about 10,000 customers without power. Jacksonville and the entire county remain under a tropical storm warning, while the coast of Duval County is still under a hurricane watch. It has re-strengthened to a Category 1 hurricane as it passes off the coast of our area. First responders have reported that a lot of people have been driving around our city to sightsee and look for damage. I'm once again asking people to please do not do that. Do not be on the roads unless you absolutely need to. If you live at the beaches, tonight from 10 p.m. to the early morning hours, please stay off the beach and away from beach access walkways. This is where you are most likely to find storm surge and moving debris. Large signs have been blown down, trees have toppled, and there's standing water in some areas. You're putting yourself at risk to be in these conditions, and if you get stuck or injured, you're taking away the valuable resources of our first responders. So please stay inside until this storm moves through. Speaking of our first responders, I want to recognize our emergency road access teams that have been working over the last 24 hours. These teams are made up of men and women from Jacksonville Fire and Rescue, Jacksonville Sheriff's Office, JEA, and local contractors, and are dedicated to clearing roads for emergency vehicles and personnel. 5 separate teams have been working throughout the area, and they've been very busy. As we are getting more rain, the ground is saturated and more trees are coming down. So far, these teams have responded to more than 40 calls, and it's very possible there's more to come. Because we want to be proactive, not reactive, we currently have floodwater rescue teams on standby. They are strategically staged throughout the city to respond to any high water rescues. While we're hopeful we won't see the same impacts as our neighboring counties, we must stand ready to respond. Tidal and coastal flooding are still a major concern as we hit high tide. This could impact the beaches and the St. Johns River. For those in flood zones and low-lying areas near the St. Johns River, please stay aware and vigilant. The 4 shelters we opened 24 hours ago remain open to the public. For more information on where they're located and which are designated for pets and special needs, please go to jacksready.com. Last night, the beaches mayors and I made the decision to close the beaches to the public. Tonight, conditions are very rough, and they will remain so overnight. However, as conditions improve, we'll provide an update on this tomorrow. Garbage, recycling, and yard waste pickup is suspended today and tomorrow. I've talked with our solid waste services teams, and those days will not be made up. Normal scheduled collections will resume on Monday. One of the reasons for this, aside from keeping crews safe and off roads, the city's Trail Ridge landfill is anticipating challenges from winds and rain related to this event. By waiting until Monday, this gives the landfill a chance to dry out before resuming normal services. And I just want to reiterate, as this storm moves off of our coast, while it's over 100 miles off of our coast, it is a Cat 1, and there will be some surge, particularly where areas where there aren't dunes. So don't be on the beach. It's a really dumb move to be out on the beach right now. We'll take questions.
Mayor, real quick, you had mentioned you had 40 calls just on service, things like that. But have there been any flooding problems or anything? We've seen minor flooding around the city, but has there been any reports of any problems of that nature?
At this point in time, we've had minor flooding occurring in low-lying areas, but we haven't had calls for major flooding at this point.
And Mayor, you had mentioned also that the shelters remain open, but do you have any idea they remain open overnight, but when you might be closing them down?
Depends on what happens tonight and in the early hours of the morning. If they're needed because of an event tonight, then we'll keep them open, but otherwise we'll make that decision tomorrow.
We've had 10,000 people now without power. So, Jay, I don't know. It was a lot less earlier. Has something happened that it increased suddenly like that?
So as the day has gone on, we've had varying numbers of people without power overall. We've turned power back on for 111,000 customers as the power has gone on and off during the day. And it will fluctuate as the evening goes on. Our peak outage was about 21,000 people. It's gotten down as low as 5,000 and it moved back up and down. As the mayor said, it's still saturated ground. Trees are still there. It's still windy. And so we expect to continue to have some outages tomorrow and through the day. tonight and through the day tomorrow.
And I just also then on the coastal flooding situation, I know you had said earlier that this is going to be a problem until Sunday. Not coastal flooding, but the tidal flooding along the river. Is that still?
It's a possibility. It is a possibility.
Okay.
It's a possibility, and we'll know more through tonight and tomorrow. I think the key for people right now is to know there's still flood risk, there's still surge risk, so just be smart. And in closing, I just want to thank all of the members of the media for all of your coverage of this, for keeping our citizens informed. Thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Jacksonville Mayor Lenny Curry wrapping up a news conference and an update here. One of the things we heard that was kind of new was that the JEA is confirming 10,000 customers don't have power right now, but Jay Stowe, the CEO of JEA, saying, hey, it was up to 21,000 and they have recovered. The other thing that he said, again, he's asking no sightseeing, don't get out there on the roadways, go looking for damage and everything, and that the beaches are still closed. The mayor says it would be a really dumb move to be out there on the beach right now, so wants to make sure people understand that.
There has been incredible flooding in downtown St. Augustine, all along the bayfront. Take a look at this video through our St. Augustine sky cam at the White Room. This was at 1 o'clock this afternoon. You cannot see the roads. Wow. And now a live look through that same sky cam again, downtown St. Augustine. You see that water is receding quickly, but it's still out there and still pretty heavy.
Recovering just a little bit. You're looking at the west end of the Bridge of Lions there in the ancient city, right on the square here. News for Jax reporter Ann Maxwell is near A1A on Anastasia Island in St. Augustine Beach, where officials said that they were doing multiple rescues today.
That's right. They've received more than 300 calls for service throughout St. Johns County here today. They've had 40 rescues evacuating people to higher ground. We've seen reports of flooding in people's homes in the Davis Shores area just north of here on the Anastasia Island Peninsula. And we are not out of the clear yet. We are in a flash flood warning until 9 o'clock tonight. That's been extended once. Would not be surprised if that happened again. City officials are warning about high tide coming at 11:50 tonight. They say expect rapidly rising water and damaging winds. I can tell you, we've been in our SUV loaded down with gear and 3 people. A couple times when we're parked, we can actually feel the wind kind of pushing the car backwards, blowing the power lines. Firefighters are telling me things are going to get more tricky tonight when it gets dark. You can't see any downed power lines. A1A flooding has receded. This was in feet of water right where I'm standing around noon today. That was around high tide. Oh, look at that big gust right there. Lots of debris out there. We've seen some fallen branches, lots of leaves and things like that. The director of public works here in the county said they're going to have a major debris cleanup operation once this all blows through. He said they've got a contractor standing by, ready to go. A lot of people are going to be needing help with damage in their flooded homes. Some of these side roads have been flooded. City officials warning people not to drive through those, not to create wake that could push into homes or businesses. Again, expecting more flooding here tonight. Pretty low right now, but we'll be keeping an eye on it. For now, live in Anastasia Island and Maxwell, Channel 4, the local station.
Thank you, Ann. And yeah, just behind her, that Mojo's Taco Shop, a very popular spot for the younger population down there. Flagler college students come down there, and I've got dear friends who live in that neighborhood right behind where Ann was standing. I've been reaching out to them to see what the news is from that neighborhood. They evacuated. Mm-hmm. They went inland, and you didn't know it at the time, but they evacuated to Orlando, where there's been flooding problems. So it just goes to show that we get the track of the storm, and you've just got to be ready for, you'll have to make adjustments as it gets closer and closer.
Well, we mentioned a moment ago a flash flood warning in effect for northern Flagler County along the coast until 9 o'clock tonight.
Yeah, the surf has been rough on Flagler's coast all day. Flagler officials telling residents in several neighborhoods to leave immediately today because of flooding.
News for Jax reporter Jamal St. Cyr joining us live in Flagler County with an update there. Jamal.
Well, we made our way kind of through Flagler. Not a ton of flooding around in the streets there. We've worked our way back up to Crescent Beach where I am now. This road is actually starting to clear out some. A lot of flooding was here earlier. This road the water's gone back a little bit now that the tide's gone out. At high tide, where I'm standing now is up to about knee high. The apartments here to my right still have a little bit of water in on the first floor, and their parking lot still submerged. Same thing to my left. We're able to make it a little bit farther in over here at Crescent Beach than we were able to earlier. This is right off of A1A between Green Avenue by the Green Road boat ramp and Middleton Avenue right behind me. Earlier this morning when we were here in Crescent Beach, I talked to a family that had been outside pumping the water from their yard since about 3 a.m., hoping to keep the water out of their house. When we went back to check on them, it looked like the water had made its way into the first floor of their home. They said that it's happened to them once or twice before. It's just a matter of trying to keep that high tide water from making its way in, but it's extremely tough to do. They had been working all morning, but they knew that they were fighting a battle that they probably just couldn't keep up with since they had started so early and the water was just continuously coming here. The water does seem to be letting off a little bit here in Crescent Beach. We'll check out around a little bit more around here, but things are starting to clear up as we made our way down A1A. Areas that were submerged early on throughout the day were just left with debris and logs and things like that all along the road, but the road is traversable now as people are starting to get out and about here in Crescent Beach. We'll keep an eye on things and check in on some of the flooding around here and see how things are holding up. But for now, here in Crescent Beach, Jamal St. Cyr for Channel 4, the local station.
All right, thank you, Jamal. We're getting new video into the newsroom showing the unimaginable destruction in Southwest Florida.
Take a look. Video of Fort Myers, homes and businesses leveled. There is nothing there. It's decimated. And you can see folks as they are walking through, though officials are asking people not quite to return yet. You can see the people wanting to survey the damage to their property. Gosh, so heartbreaking.
Absolutely.
Folks, stay with us as we continue to get new reports on Ian's aftermath. That's next.
And we want to give you a live look right now to Clay County. This is our sky cam at Doctors Lake Marina. We did hear from the sheriff of Clay County just a few moments ago that there was some localized flooding in that area. Be careful out there.
And this is incredible. I live right around the corner from here. All of the water you see to the right of those pilings is dry land. Folks,
not today.
No. If you can safely take photos or video from your neighborhood showing conditions there, please upload them to SnapJax. You can find SnapJax inside the Weather Authority app or at news4jax.com/SnapJax.
Helping out in a way that's positively Jax? Share the good news and snap it.
Intense storm clouds rolling through your neighborhood? Stay prepared and snap it.
The beautiful sunset in the Bold City. Don't forget to snap it.
Log in to news4jax.com and become a News4Jax insider for free. Then click SnapJax and start uploading your photos today. Do it all
WJXT.com.
Thanks for staying with us in our continuing coverage of tracking Hurricane Ian. It has turned back into a hurricane here in these last 20 minutes. We've got new video in the newsroom showing a tree falling onto a car in Jacksonville.
Take a look. This is in the area between Spring Park and San Marco. We're going to play it in its entirety. As you watch, you'll see somebody walking just out of the way, right in the nick of time.
Harry, come here. Do you know what these mean? It's all about the journey of the Flagler County.
All right, incredible video here, right? And so if you were listening there, you can hear people's voices in the background, but what you don't hear is a big loud warning, hey, person walking in the street, get out of the way.
Yeah, you don't hear anything. John was talking with us about that. He was saying when this tree fell over, there's no crackling noise beforehand. It just fell. And another reason for you to stay indoors at this time until law enforcement, until city officials are able to tell us that everything is clear.
Great point by John. Hey, that's why you're not walking at night outside in these conditions, because you don't hear it and you wouldn't see it moving and you'd just be in a bad spot right there.
Now we take you to Southwest Florida. Video of destruction in San Carlos Island. This is right next to Fort Myers Beach. Take a look at all of these homes. A lot of them actually toppled over from the storm. You see the boats there in the marinas just flown up on shore. Different areas annihilated, the homes.
Well, one of the things that you see there in some of the destruction is, it looks like maybe a tornado. Well, that's what oh my goodness. That's what you get with the hurricane strength winds again. When it was coming up there on the southwest part of Florida, when it was approaching, it was a hurricane. It was a major hurricane when it made landfall here. So this is more of the destruction that we see in Fort Myers Beach. One of the city council members reporting that he thinks 90 or 95% of the island is destroyed.
Chief Meteorologist John Gahn standing by now. John, it just splintered everything in its path.
And again, the wind speeds here, we'll do some post-analysis, but likely to be between 130 and 150 miles an hour. And those are the sustained winds. Oftentimes what we've seen here in the last 24 hours in Jacksonville is that when we've seen power outages, it's not the sustained winds, which have been 20, 25, 35, 40 miles an hour. It's those peak winds that catch your attention, and all of a sudden those winds gusting up to around 55, 60 miles an hour. That's when things start breaking on the tip tops of trees, or a tree, as you saw here, was succumbed to the saturated soil, and finally you could just see it leaning, and then thump, it went. And so tonight, stay indoors. It's going to be dark in about another hour. In fact, it's getting pretty dark already out there this evening. So just be alert to the fact that conditions are still going to remain potentially dangerous, even if you don't live like in St. Augustine, where the flooding continues right now. This is at dead low tide. We're at the lowest potential level of water that we're going to see for at least the next 18 hours. As again, we can see the water here still standing in the wake of it, trying to drain back out in there, the Matanzas River. Again, some of the sheriff's office still going over the Bridge Alliance here. The winds are trying to subside, but every now and then we do still see that gust of wind up to around 55, 60 miles an hour along the coast. Next high tide in St. Augustine's in a dark at night, 11:35. There are power outages in the downtown area, and that's going to lead to just a more surreal moment when those tide waters still continuously come on up, and they will continue to rise as we get past this low tide. Then there's a low tide 5 in the morning. Next high tide, this is for Friday, tomorrow, will be right around noon, and I think it'll be very similar to what we'll likely see here tonight at 11:35. So the next two high tides, midnight tonight, and then coming up here tomorrow around the lunch hour, equally going to be very flooding in the downtown area of St. Augustine. Jacksonville Beach, you can see a few folks trying to head on out there. I was out earlier today over at Ponte Vedra. There is a huge drop off. The erosion that has taken place has been extreme, and it has gone into those areas that have been trying to be recovered with new dunes that were put in place about 8 weeks ago. those dunes held in there pretty well, but now, unfortunately, there's this huge drop-off, and if you were to fall down into this wave action at high tide, which is going to be coming up there at the beach, not only midnight tonight, but noon tomorrow, don't get too close, because ultimately, if you do get into that situation, no one's going to come get you, because the water levels there are extreme in terms of over at Jacksonville Beach. That's over there, Clay County. That's 17 right there. Doctors Lake Marina running about 2 feet above normal in terms of the water levels. The good news is we're not seeing it spill, and this is Green Cove Springs down to the south. Still gusty northerly winds, but that water flowing down towards Putnam County and Palatka, that's where we're going to see the bigger flooding along the St. Johns River tonight. It's not necessarily going to be in the downtown. We're pretty much getting past that now, but it will be taking place south of us. 5 o'clock advisory, 75-mile-an-hour winds. Again, this is a hurricane. Again, Ian will continue to track off towards the Carolina coastline. Charleston, all the way out to Myrtle Beach, like to see the winds here. Very similar to what we had seen, but now they're going to get that onshore wind, and that onshore wind is going to create a great wave of rain, bigger than what we had seen here. Some of the threats that we'd seen in the forecast models were 10, 20 inches of rain didn't materialize, but 6 to about 10 inches did take place, especially St. Augustine southward. This region of eastern parts of South Carolina could equally see 10 to 20 inches of rain, and the flooding will be widespread. It's going to be a very challenging moment for them tomorrow and into Saturday. Our rain's trying to wrap it up, but we still see on occasion a little band of rain trying to work its way back out here towards the beaches, and I think that's going to be the case here for the next couple, 3 or 4 hours. The actual center of rotation located right about in through here, just off the coast, but every now and then we're going to get a little splash back onto the beaches, and I think that might actually pick up just a tad as we head towards the evening hours. News continues. We're going to be back here in just moments, and of course, a full wrap-up not likely to take place because this is still happening. We'll have more in moments.
Become a local VIP with News 4 Jax Insider. Behind-the-scenes access, live Q&As with anchors, exclusive weather tools, first dibs on local discounts and events. Join News 4 Jax Insider today. Channel 4, the local station. News 4 Jax starts right now with a breaking news alert.
A flash flood warning in effect for St. Johns and Flagler counties until 9 o'clock tonight. This is video of downtown St. Augustine. This is in Clay County along the St. Johns River. Choppy water damaged part of a dock. And we saw this, a driver stranded in floodwaters in St. Augustine.
I went downtown. I thought it would be okay, and I got flooded.
We're getting reports of trees on homes, this one in Arlington. Over the next several days, there will be a lot of this going on. In Southwest Florida, utter devastation. This drone footage shows boats piled up at a marina.
You kind of find yourself in a position where you're totally powerless.
Heartbreaking images emerging like this. A woman in her flooded kitchen and homes and businesses in Fort Myers leveled. And now footage for you from Southwest Florida showing a home on fire today. And folks, remember, there are floodwaters in these residential streets, no doubt making it harder for crews to reach situations like this to be able to put this fire out. And now, a live look in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina for you. Ian, now a hurricane again, and it is taking aim at coastal Georgia as well as the Carolinas. It's been a busy day tracking Ian's impacts, and officials are warning flooding could get worse tonight, so it is not time to let our guards down yet.
Not yet. They do not want people outside seeing and looking for damage. They want you to stay indoors. We've got crews spread out across our area this evening as we continue covering this for you. We start, though, with some new pictures of some flooding near Universal in Orlando.
We're looking at a downed power line right there, and you see how close it is to that home and the vehicle, and then water all the way up to the top step of that house. And you see the person wading through, trying to get through it, which is something that we've been warned not to do.
Right, and we told you about this earlier, but there's a flash flood warning in effect for St. Augustine and for coastal areas of St. Johns County in effect until 9 o'clock tonight.
News for Jax reporter Scott Johnson is there. He is joining us live. Scott.
Guys, I've seen some improvement here in the last few hours in St. Augustine. So I'm in the Old City right now. This entire stretch of road where that SUV is driving right now was totally underwater, totally submerged here about 2 hours or so ago. The water level has gone down. I've been in various parts of the city. But go to the right there, across the street, at that parking lot right there, right by the old fort. Still a lot of standing water inside. So as you said, there's still that flash flood concern. They're still raining consistently. The wind is heavy. Now, I have been talking to some people who say there's still a concern about high tide later on tonight could bring the waters back up to those levels we saw earlier. But we have seen the levels go down a little, which helps drivers because I've seen considerable amount of vehicles submerged in standing water at the streets all over St. Augustine. But for now, the water level is down on the roads. We don't know how long that will continue. And as you said, that flash flood warning remains in effect. A lot of people have been out sightseeing. I don't necessarily recommend it. It is windy, it is nasty out here, and it is not letting up. We will watch and see if that high tide brings that water level back again here in the Old City and all over St. Augustine. We're live. Scott Johnson, Channel 4, the local station.
All right, Scott, thank you. And we want to give you a live look right now through our Jax Beach Sky Cam. At this point, you cannot see the beach. This is not live. We're told this was a short while ago. Video of...
Yeah, this looks like some damage from what's happening, beach erosion out there. Obviously, maybe some chairs there. I don't think those are walkways that have been torn apart, but it certainly could be. We've seen that in the past with some of the damage we've seen from tropical storms, in this case Ian, which as just at the top of our 5 o'clock hour had re-strengthened into a hurricane once again.
Unfortunately, we are able to bring you these pictures. This is a live look of Jax Beach right now. We're able to bring you this. Mayor Curry saying the beaches are closed, so all these folks that are out here on the beach that you're looking at, they should not be there right now. The beaches are closed due to safety reasons, as you can imagine, because of Hurricane Ian. The mayor saying that this is really, he said, a dumb move. So please do not follow these people, because if they need rescuing, that just ties up resources for others.
And so we've seen rough surf, high tides, or high winds all day. News4JAX reporter Janice Harris shows us the conditions out there within the past hour.
The winds are very strong out here at Jacksonville Beach. You can see it's overcast, and you can tell how strong the wind is based upon the ocean right now. You can see the wind is so strong, it's really pushing the sand further inland. There's quite a tall drift. And I want to show you this as well. You can see how much the sand is being pushed up as you walk a little bit closer to get off of the coastline. But this is the consistent feeling that we're getting out here with the rain and the wind. It is not fun out here at all. We just saw two people on the beach that were running back in. Not sure why they were out here. And if you look behind us, you'll see there are some spectators, a couple of cars that are coming out, just driving by to see what's going on. This is definitely not the place you want to be. There's sand blowing around, getting all over our hands and our coats. And again, the rain, though it is very light, it feels like little tiny pellets. So you definitely don't want to be out here. The wind is picking up with every round, pushing my photographer around as well a little bit. So this gives you a really good idea of just how bad it is out here, even though it is just a tropical storm. Reporting from Jacksonville Beach, Janice Harris, Channel 4, the local station.
All right, and an important update for parents and guardians in Duval County. The superintendent, Dr. Diana Green, says that public schools are remaining closed tomorrow. However, Saturday morning, the district will announce a final decision regarding Monday school and activities associated with the school district.
And all local public schools in our area are closed through tomorrow. We have not heard of any that will remain closed Monday. When DCPS, though, makes that announcement on Saturday, we'll send you a push alert to the News4JAX app. We will surely keep you posted.
And just as a reminder, because school is closed on Friday, whether it's this district or any other, probably all of your weekend events at a school or associated with the school district are going to be canceled as well. So we're getting lots of images uploaded to our SnapJax channel from viewers who were able to safely take video and photos from their neighborhood today.
You're looking at an image right now from Amanda. This is in St. Augustine, Windswept Acres Park on 5th Street. You can see just how high the water is coming up for them. Snapchat photo now from David Posey. The next one is in the Fort Caroline, Arlington area. Where we're going, is this what we're looking at here? Nope, this is Amanda's pictures. Hopefully we can go to the next one. David Posey, there we go, the Fort Caroline, Arlington area. Yeah. A tree down on top of that vehicle right in front of someone's home.
And that's not as large of a branch or what have you, but you get damage to your vehicle or your home or whatever it is, your furniture out there, when these tree limbs come down like this.
John Gahn is looking at these pictures with us. Next one is Carol Kirby. John, this was uploaded from Fernandina Beach. Flooding at a marina there, water up to the boat ramp closed sign. Can you see that there?
Yeah, and if you look closely here, we're trying to identify the time of day. Remember, there are high tides along the coast, whether it's in Georgia, Jacksonville Beach, or in St. Augustine. It's all about the same time, and so this is probably right at dead high tide here, right around the lunch hour. And that high tide, again, will be back along this location in Fernandina Beach all the way into St. Augustine, Jax Beach at midnight tonight, and then another high tide tomorrow. And I think the next two big tides are going to show similar to what you're seeing here. Fernandina Beach, one of those areas that we often worry about because they do have an extremely high tide issue, and you can see clearly that's what took place there, and that again took place earlier on. Doctors Lake Marina, and again you can see the trees down, and the soft soil in terms of the saturation of our soil from the rains, which were not huge. We've really gotten, again, we talk about this often enough about being lucky and not seeing the worst of the storm. Obviously, that took place in southwestern parts of the state. But for us here, for us not to see 6-10 inches of rain, but still getting these kind of uprooted trees and power lines being knocked down by tree limbs that were being pushed around by the gusty winds of 60 miles an hour, just illustrate how lucky we were and not seeing much more of this. So tonight, walking around, I don't recommend this. Remember, this is not at the beach. This is just like over here at Doctors Lake, in Clay County, and you can see that trees are coming down still, and that the saturated soil and a good gust of wind can go a long way to unfortunately causing problems.
Now, John, we've been showing people this, the video that we have from Spring Park with that tree that pulls the roots right out of the ground and then falls over, almost hits a man, hits a car there. Did that to you show that, hey, that was probably saturated ground? Is that why the tree's roots came right up out of the ground and it fell?
Yes, and it's not obvious at first, but if you look at the video a couple of times, I'm going to show it to you again because it's such a classic video, you can see the tree was leaning.
Yeah.
It was already kind of on its way. This is not the video, obviously, but we'll show that coming up here in a few minutes. I don't know if we have more pictures here, but again, that was from Laura Ratzliff out there in Doctor's Lake. That one tree, again, saturated because of the rains, and you can see all that Spanish moss hanging from the tree, probably added to the weight and the wind bearing, and so one big gust of wind, and that came tumbling on down.
Yeah, I spoke with the CFO of the state, Jimmy Petronis, this week, John, and he said, if you don't trim your trees, if you don't prune your trees, Mother Nature will do it for you.
Yeah.
And that's
Yikes.
one of those examples.
Folks, if you can safely take video or photos of how Ian impacted your area, please upload them to news4jax.com/snapjacks. It's right in the Weather Channel. We will be right back.
Helping out in a way that's positively Jax? Share the good news and snap it.
Intense storm clouds rolling through your neighborhood? Stay prepared and snap it.
The beautiful sunset in the Bold City. Don't forget to snap it.
Log in to news4jax.com and become a News4Jax insider for free. Then click Snapjacks and start uploading your photos today. Do it all and more with Snapjacks, Channel 4, the local station.
Frying Pan Shoals, there's a streaming cam right there. This is some 32 miles off the North Carolina coast. This is an old lighthouse that was built to warn ships of the shallow water back in the 1960s. Sold in 2010. It's now a bed and breakfast. Yeah, a place where people stay. They can only get there by chopper or boat. The tower, 135 feet above the Atlantic. But we're showing you that because that is the direction Hurricane Ian is now headed.
And yesterday, North Carolina, the Carolinas already declared a state of emergency in anticipation for Hurricane Ian. Now, this is Edwards Creek. This is on Sterrett Road. This is on Jacksonville's north side, which we were not expecting too much happening on this side of town. But as you can see, there is still some rough water out there all the way up to this dock and about to come on shore.
So Caruso Garcia is sending us some images here, South Ponte Vedra Beach.
It looks like some restoration has just been done. All of the planting that was done there in hopes of growing up
getting
that.
unrestored, isn't it? This is the big concern for so many people who are there at the beaches, whether it's St. Johns County or other counties, that so much erosion is going to be done here because of those kinds of waves that you're seeing right there, spinning off of Tropical Storm Ian, now again Hurricane Ian going past us.
John, I'm drawing a blank. You call those little spots there where the little
dunes.
Yeah, they were planted along there.
Yeah, literally the plugs. And,
plugs, thank you.
And again, those little sawgrasses, they do a tremendous job at helping things out there.
Now, this is video from Jenug's Fish Camp. This is in Crescent Beach in St. Johns County. Golly.
Clearly lots of water there. So these are examples of what's happening, especially when we go, I guess you would say, east of I-95, whether it's right on the beach or other communities that are prone to flooding. We're seeing some of the water damage that's happening here. And we're hearing from John that that's probably 2 or 3 o'clock this afternoon when that was happening.
Now, we also just received new video into the newsroom from a family vacationing in Flagler Beach. They're from Georgia. So take a look.
They recorded video of portions of the Flagler Beach Pier passing by in the ocean. Again, coastal Flagler County, the northern portion that is under a flash flood warning until 9 o'clock tonight. This clearly from earlier in the day, but we've been hearing reports of it. Now we're seeing evidence of the Flagler Beach Pier being torn apart there.
And Sheriff Staley said this is probably the end of the pier. It's going to need reconstruction. He was telling us, and this is the proof of that. All right now we're going to take you to Fort Myers, which saw tremendous flooding as Hurricane Ian came ashore on Florida's west coast.
Yeah, Gage Long is joining us. It lives on the second story of an apartment building in the popular River District close to the Caloosahatchee River.
Yeah, so Gage, hopefully you can hear us. When you spoke...
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Perfect. When we spoke with you last night, you were shocked to find a yacht just sitting at your balcony. Had no idea where it came from. What do things look like out there now?
Here, I'll show you. It's not bad. Not as bad as it was. There was a lot of water over my head right here. But there it is right there. There's the boat that was next to my window and everything, so.
And there's actually a second one past that also sitting nearby.
Yeah. Give me 1 second. We'll go up there real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was insane.
The water has receded, it looks like, from what you were showing us last night, right?
Yeah, a lot. It was almost up to my you can see it.
Wow.
That's the bay right there and everything. And there's another boat.
Yeah, Gage, I know I understand from Joy that you didn't have power all night long. You wound up rescuing a neighbor. So tell us about that, how she's doing now, and what was happening there.
Well, we heard from a friend over Facebook and everything. They contacted me. Her name's Stephanie. She lives on the other side, and she asked me if I knew which apartment, and she was actually underneath me. So we had it was a lot of debris because you can see it right here. Yeah. This was all floating and stuff like that. So we had to go through the other window and go in the water and get her. And she's fine now. She was really shaken up. She was in water for a while. You know, up to her waist. I had to pull her out of her window and everything, and then we got her up to upstairs and everything. So.
Engaged there in Fort Myers in the River District there. If you could show us that debris on the ground again, I just want to explain to viewers, all of that was floating and it was up so high, Gage was almost able to step from his balcony right onto that boat right there. So that was almost going to be your escape in case water started coming into your apartment. Can you tell us very quickly, have you gotten a chance to leave your apartment area and get to see just past it and what kind of damage is going on near you?
No, there's a lot of damage downtown. It's on the river, but no, I'm allowing family and friends to come over and use the power and electricity and stuff.
Yeah, it's incredible.
But
it's incredible, Gage, that you have that. And Gage Long, Fort Myers, we appreciate getting to see what's happening there. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And you hear that chirping in the background? That's the fire alarm of his apartment building that has been going off all night long.
Yeah, we heard it last night. It was a little louder last night, wasn't it?
A lot louder. Now it's about dying there. So anyway, stay with us, folks. So much more to show you, so much more coming up.
We'll be right back here on Channel 4.
In 2022, join us in Random Jacks of Kindness, a year-long commitment to paying it forward with acts big and small. Practice Random Jacks of Kindness. Sign the pledge on PositivelyJacks.com. Exact Track 4D, the Weather Authority's secret weapon against severe storms. The most cutting-edge weather technology in Northeast Florida and South Georgia.
Stay tuned for the 6 o'clock news. I'm going to give you a quick little wrap up on Ian, now a hurricane yet again. That's how it looks now, but back it up about 28 hours ago, coming on shore. And this was yesterday, and you can see the eye, very classic look. But that donut look faded away, and the storms began to wind down somewhat. East of there was some incredible thunderstorms out into the Atlantic Ocean. But now we're starting to see the consolidation of the center, which is taking place right about here, right there. And as such, we're starting to see the redevelopment of some very heavy thunderstorms back out to the west and to the north of the center as this center goes out there towards the South Carolina coastline. As a Category 1 hurricane, the potential for extreme flooding is now going to translate itself up the coast, and it'll ultimately end up out there. Oh, I would imagine anything from the lowlands areas of out there and towards the low country, I should say, of South Carolina, and that extends from about Hilton Head all the way northward towards the North Carolina line, likely to see the extreme rains. Closer to home, if you watch closely here, little yellow bands are still trying to work their way close to the coast, but the rain is going to hug the beaches here for the next number of hours. The beaches themselves likely to continuously see the potential for heavy rain. Now, if you live out there towards St. Johns County from St. Augustine southward, the flash flood warning till 9 o'clock is a little weird to me because we're at dead low tide. Understand the tide is going to increase and the flooding will increase. That flash flood warning basically needs to go to about 3 in the morning tomorrow morning because the potential for flooding, increasing tides that is, from here on out is what's going to take place. As we take a look what's happening in terms of the river gauges closer to home right now, red here represents we're starting to see moderate flooding, and that extends all the way out here to the Nassau River near Nassauville, and then down south out there towards the Julington Creek area near Orange Park as well, the Buckman, seeing some pretty high tides. But again, again, it is when we get into southern parts of St. Johns County, out there towards Hastings, and then back out here along the St. Johns River towards Palatka. This is where we find the major flooding is taking place. That's the purple area here. So again, along the St. Johns River in Putnam County. Remember, our big 4 counties we were concerned about, Clay, St. Johns, Putnam, and Flagler counties. These are the counties that really took it took it pretty hard last night into today in terms of rainfall and flooding. These are the areas that we're still seeing the flooding take place. Now, we're looking at, it's hard to see here, but hang with me. You just need to understand that what we're seeing here is Mayport running about 1.5 to 2 feet above normal over at the Dames Point Bridge. This includes the Arlington area running about 1.5 feet. Remember, we're all heading towards a low tide mark here, which is going to take place within the next 3 hours, and that extends all the way to South Bank and then finally out there towards the Buckman Bridge. The Buckman area, this is where we're seeing near Gillington Creek some of the higher levels of water. St. Augustine, remember the flood warning's in effect for you right now. The tides have gone out, but the rains are still coming down, and I expect those tides to come right back in. The next high tide is at 11:35 here tonight. It'll be in the dark where we're going to see the extreme flooding. Wait till 6 o'clock. We'll show you what it looked like at lunch here today. We're going to see that again coming up here at midnight tonight, and then again tomorrow at the lunch hour. Live at Jacksonville Beach, sand whipping down the coast right now. This is sand just blowing over the dunes as the winds there continue to gust upwards. That's a sustained wind of 41 miles an hour, but we've had gusts to 60 at Jax Beach here just in the last couple of hours. Stay tuned, folks. The 6 o'clock news starts in just a few moments.
In the eyes of the law, all men are created equal. Whether your case is worth $5,000 or $5 million, it doesn't matter. This is your big case. Our principles in our fight remain the same. At Farah & Farah, it's all about you.
Tracking affordable gas, can do. Tracking essential supplies, down to the aisle. Tracking health stats at your kid's school, at your fingertips. Tracking severe storms to protect your family, we do that every day. Chief Meteorologist John Gahn and the Weather Authority, tracking dangerous threats days ahead with alerts down to the minute they approach your neighborhood. Undaunted by national models, putting your local track first. The Weather Authority, always watching, always tracking. Channel 4, the local station. News 4 Jack starts right now with a breaking news alert.
Look at that. Breaking right now at 6 o'clock, we continue to cover Ian's heart-wrenching destruction in Southwest Florida. You're looking at miles of the aftermath, this in Fort Myers. Countless people stranded, help unable to reach them on Sanibel. because the one-way to and from that island has been destroyed. Flooding and winds doing millions of dollars in damage, destroying homes and marinas, including this one in Fort Myers. Can't even count all of those bolts. Locally, some places have been flooded like never before. This is St. Augustine. Water almost up to the street lights as Ian swept through our area this afternoon. Parts of our area are still under various watches and warnings as we wait for Ian to blow entirely off of our coast.
And Ian was just named a hurricane again an hour ago after being downgraded to a tropical storm this afternoon. It's been more than 24 hours since Ian first made landfall in Florida, ripping apart communities in Southwest Florida. And the death toll so far, according to the governor's office, stands at 12.
We are slowly seeing some return to normal after the storm. Jacksonville Airport will be opening again for some flights tomorrow. TSA will open at 7 in the morning.
And JTA also confirmed it will resume regular bus service tomorrow by noon. City crews will use tonight to clean up any damage left behind. And we have crews across the state covering Ian's deadly impact. We begin with Vic Michelucci in downtown Fort Myers. And Vic, you took us through Ian as the storm was pummeling that area. Now you're able to see the breathtaking damage up close.
It was a scary and powerful storm, Mary, and now we are seeing the human toll from hour upon hour of that lashing from that Category 4 as it came through with 155-mile-an-hour winds right here. This is one of those marinas that people are talking about where giant ships, yachts, have just been cast onto the shoreline, and people had to run for their lives, literally. The people that decided that they wanted to stay to protect their property ended up realizing that that was a bad idea. One of those is our friend Sid right here. Sid, you and your dogs actually live on one of those sailboats. You were here for the beginning of the storm. What was it like?
Well, initially, we thought we could ride it out on the boat just because we've ridden out a lot of hurricanes, especially Rodney was over here. He's 80 years old. He's rode out like 6 hurricanes, and but this was the most ferocious he's ever seen or I've ever seen. I've been here in Florida for over 50 years and never seen a storm that bad.
Yeah, really a monster. And we were just up the road in Northport as it was going through. It was even worse here. When did you decide you needed to go, and then where did you go?
Well, I got this big boat over here behind us. It hit the back of our boat, jarred us, and so I wanted to get out and see what the extent of the damage was because I didn't know if it hurt the hull. I got out, and when I did, I saw he had me pinned in, and the surge was already started, and I have animals on board the boat, and I was concerned about them. These guys here, I was worried about them, so I got them off the boat, and then realized I was waist deep in water, and it was strong. The current was strong, and the winds were strong, and by the time I got them to safety and back to the boat, there was no getting back on it.
And that's when you went across the street and sheltered over there. Yeah, Sid, I know that you're in a difficult predicament right now. We're going to get you more water, more sports drinks, and whatever you need. So thank you.
Thank you, guys. And I'm, we had a lot of tragedy. A lot of these people stayed at the second floor, and we watched it all. An event happened that we couldn't stop. We couldn't stop it. We couldn't prevent it. We couldn't do anything about it. We just watched our boats get destroyed.
Well, we're glad that you and the dogs are okay, and we're going to circle back with you in just a little bit. Want to show you a little bit more. And this is off one of the major bridges. We can't get signal, but we went in some of these neighborhoods, and let me tell you, it is really ugly there. Homes destroyed, people just begging for any kind of supplies, whether it's gas, whether it's ice, water, food, things like that, things that they just lost during the storm. And there is an extremely short supply. That's why it took so long for us to get to Fort Myers. It took us about 4 hours from the Bradenton area. Now, as we came down here, we stopped at some of these mobile home parks. And we also have aerial footage. Want to show you what it looked like from above throughout Lee County, Sarasota County, Manatee County. Really bad situation right there. But when we stopped at these mobile home parks, we found roofs ripped off. We found homes underwater, some places torn down to just the foundations. And we spoke with some of the residents who thankfully decided to evacuate, and they say they are okay. Their stuff is not. But you all made the decision that you did not want to ride out the storm.
No, correct. I was going to almost. Yes. But my kids said no. So
Was it the right call?
right call.
Yes.
The best decision we
Yes.
made. Yeah.
There's going to be a problem refilling the gas for the generator, and we're not running it all the time, so that's what I'm worried about now.
So the good news is they say that they have loved ones, they have places to stay in the meantime. The bad news is some of their neighbors do not. They don't have anyone down here in this part of Southwest Florida. They're going to be at shelters, at motels, potentially moving to other parts of the state for several months until they're able to rebuild. So let's walk you through this debris field. It is really just everywhere. Mile after mile, no electricity, no running water. You can't drink out of the sinks. There's a boil water advisory. Fuel, really a hot commodity. We found one gas station. That gas station, the awning was torn down. People were still trying to get fuel out of it. There were some arguments. The police had to come. Tensions are definitely high with all of this devastation. And if you look in the distance, you will see trees just ripped down, a ton of damage. And we are told that it's even worse at Fort Myers Beach, where just about everything was destroyed in certain parts close to the water because of that double-digit storm surge. We are trying to make our way out there. The roads are blocked, so we're not able to get there right now. But certainly that is something that we are working on. All that I can tell you is there is a massive human toll. A lot of people are hurt. A lot of people have lost belongings, and they're just going to need that help. They're going to need that love, not for the next couple of days, but for the next couple of months. It is going to be a very long recovery here in Southwest Florida. In Naples, in Fort Myers, I'm Vic Nicolucci, Channel 4, the local station.
Vic, thank you so much, and our thanks too to the photojournalist who was with you, Chris O'Rourke, for that sobering images from Fort Myers.
And now we want to get you to Chief Meteorologist John Gunn. So, John, we're seeing the last few bands of Ian leaving our area. Boy, so staggering to see, though, what Vic is showing us.
Exactly right. I got to tell you a little more about Vic and Chris. I flew with the Hurricane Hunters with Chris, and he's a real intrepid guy. Just likes to get out there into all these intense locations. And Vic, as you well know, he's covered an amazing number of hurricanes, including Michael, a Category 5 storm just a few years ago back out there in the Panhandle. Our state's been pummeled, to say the least. Tonight we're watching Ian become a hurricane again, and now it's heading towards South Carolina, some 250 miles south of Charleston at this point. It's going to close in very rapidly overnight. And the big story there is going to be potential for extreme rainfall. I know you heard that about us here locally. We did not see extreme rainfall except in Flagler and southern St. Johns counties. But as we go into the early morning hours tomorrow, this is at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but it'll be early tomorrow morning. The rains will start to push right on through South Carolina and potentially here up to a foot, maybe even more inches of rain will take place there. Still under hurricane watch here locally. Tropical storm warning as well. What that means is that our winds continue to be very gusty. That means it's potentially dangerous to be outside here tonight. And the gusty winds go all the way out to Lake City right now. So what that means also is that even if you didn't see severe wind and rain throughout the last 24 hours in the inland areas, there's still that random chance that a tree could come down, especially where we did see the rains and the saturated soils of the line for these to kind of get knocked over because of the fact that the roots themselves have been weakened by all the rains that we've seen. Speaking of which, still seeing a little bit of a pushback towards the west. Not a huge pushback, but the rains are going to continue here. This is Exact Track 4D live right now, and you can see the rains extend all the way out there into the Atlantic Ocean, but they really are hugging I-95 all the way through Jacksonville, down to the south of us. This is the flood warning that you're going to hear about, but the flood warning is a little bit weird to me because I want you to understand, if you live in St. Augustine, anywhere along the coast, we're heading from a dead low tide right now to a high tide around midnight tonight. Flooding is going to return, and it could come in very quickly because the waters did not recede well in terms of what we saw from going the earlier high tide to the low tide that we just had. Speaking of river gauges and where the flooding has been taking place, mainly just to the south of the immediate downtown area. Yellow here represents the Trout River, extending back out there towards the Buckman Bridge, and then back out there from the Buckman all the way back out there to the Dames Point Bridge. Bridge. Yellow here, meaning that we got to near flood stage. Nothing like Irma, very much like it was when it came to Matthew. And that means down south, these areas and through parts of Putnam County. There's Palatka out towards Hastings. Purple here represent where we're seeing major flooding having taken place. Next high tide taking place out there in St. Augustine, 11:35. You've seen some of the video. You're going to see it again. It was staggering in terms of the amount of flooding that took place in downtown St. Augustine. Many of the roads, we will show you this shot here, but I have surveyed this area in the wake of last year's nor'easter. And let me tell you, anything from here to the ice house was seriously underwater for an extended period of time. That kind of flooding is going to return over the next number of hours. Remember, the next high tide's 11:35. Tomorrow around lunch, Mary, should be the final of the bad high tides in the St. Augustine area. But tonight's at midnight and tomorrow around noon, both are likely to be about what we had seen earlier today.
High water. John, thanks. And now we want to take you to where that flooding has been the worst today, down in St. Johns County.
And Maxwell is there with an update. She's been there all day. She's on Anastasia Island near the St. Augustine Lighthouse. And
Tom, we are still getting lashed with wind and rain here on Anastasia Island. You can really see how strong this wind is. Look at the water there. A neighbor here tells me they have not seen whitecaps like this here. It looks like it's just shredded the sails of some of those boats back there. It's knocked down a catamaran here along the shore. We've seen branches down, rain still coming down pretty strongly as well. And we have seen a lot of flooding out here today. St. Johns County spokesperson tells us 40 people have had to be rescued today from homes, from vehicles, getting those people out into higher ground at shelters here in the area. The floodwaters have receded since we've been here the past couple of hours over on A1A near the Bridge of Lions. There were feet of water in the roadway earlier around high tide, a little before noon and right after noon earlier today. That has since receded, but we are not out of the clear yet. Flash flood warning still in effect until 9 o'clock tonight. As John mentioned, high tide coming back again. Talked to a couple firefighters who said people are still getting rescued from cars in downtown St. Augustine who should not be driving around. He says here they're just waiting until tonight when those rescues potentially pick back up. The message from county officials here: don't leave your house if you don't need to. Stay inside. Don't be out driving in the roadways. Don't be driving through flooded neighborhood streets because it can push that water into people's homes, businesses, where it might not have gone there before. So still feeling the effects of Ian here on Anastasia Island very strongly. Stern warnings from local officials. Stay inside. Some people's homes have already flooded. So something we'll continue to keep an eye on throughout the night. For now, reporting live from Anastasia Island and Maxwell, Channel 4, the local station.
And thanks.
we heard from Duval County officials less than an hour ago as Ian was working its way off of our coast.
And Jim, you were at the mayor's briefing. What's the latest?
Well, he's basically warning people that we could see some low-line flooding like we have right behind me here. I'm just outside of Springfield Park. We're on Market Street and Confederate Road. And really what's happening here is because of the tides, we're seeing this flooding. And the mayor and others are saying that even later on tonight, we could see even more flooding in these areas that typically flood. You know, I've been all across Jacksonville today, kind of looking at some of the problems that we're seeing. And this is really some of the worst that we've seen, which is kind of surprising. In the San Marco area, there was flooding. In the South Shore area, some flooding coming up near the homes. But it wasn't as bad as they had thinking that could have happened. And even in the Riverside area, just past Memorial Park, we saw some flooding over there as well. But for the most part, they're asking people, you know, this isn't really over yet. They're concerned about what could happen later this evening when high tide comes again. They just want people to be alert. By the way, shelters, there are 4 of them here in Jacksonville. They are still open, and if need be, people can still go to those shelters. They had about 200 people there at the height of this storm, is what they're saying. Again, the airport, we're told, is going to be opening tomorrow. Bus service will resume tomorrow at noon. Those are the situations, but they're still keeping an eye out and just reminding people, be safe if you're heading outside. For now, we're live in Springfield. Jim Pickett, Channel 4, the local station.
Thank you, Jim. Let's go now to Jacksonville Beach. Mayor Curry said less than an hour ago that he's urging everyone to stay off the beach, especially out of the water for the time being.
My News4Jax reporter Janice Harris is showing us the conditions as Ian begins to move offshore.
We are here at Neptune Beach. The sand that's come up from the dune is kind of protecting us a little bit from the wind, but it is still really bad conditions out here, and we're not even getting the worst of this storm. You can see if you look far out into the distance just how strong those waves are out in the Atlantic Ocean here at Neptune Beach. And there's also been, this beach has also got its share of erosion as well, and you can see the sand as it's just kind of flying across the beach. But it's been a very difficult day for folks where you really should not be out here if you don't need to be out here. But we have had some onlookers, such as the young man that you see right there out on the beach. We do not recommend that you come out here and do this. There's still light rain. The wind, it comes and goes. At some points, it kind of pushes us just a little bit. But again, here out at Neptune Beach, another place where we do not recommend anyone to come out here. And the wind is starting to pick up yet again as we get those rounds. But as you can see, really a powerful storm, and you can tell from the waves from the ocean out here. Reporting from Neptune Beach, Janice Harris, Channel 4, the local station.
And that sand blowing sideways. Thank you, Janice. And we're going to take a short break as we continue to follow Ian as it moves away from Florida.
First new video into our newsroom showing the Flagler Pier just floating away. We heard a little while ago from Flagler County Sheriff Rick Staley. He said he didn't believe the pier would survive, Ian, and he was right. You can watch his entire interview on news4jax.com. Mary and I will be right back.
I'm Lakeisha Burton, and I'm ready to change the JSO and bring violent crime under control. In law enforcement, it doesn't make sense to keep doing things that don't work. In the last 7 years, the guy running against me has spent $500 million to see violent crime go up 19% and Jacksonville become the murder capital of Florida. His approach is reactive and clumsy, and it doesn't work. I will change the culture of the JSO from the inside out. I will make Jacksonville safer.
Some people look at a space and only see what's there. At Amazing Closets and More, we look at your home and see a way to optimize it so you get the most out of your room. Starting with free design consultations, we work directly with you every step of the way. Big or small, we handle it all. Everything is custom built, so there's no trying to make it work or settling for something that's just not right. Amazing Closets and More. Don't just organize, optimize. Call or go online now to schedule your free in-home or virtual consultation.
Join us in Random Jacks of Kindness, a year-long commitment to paying it forward with acts big and small. Sign the pledge on PositivelyJacks.com.
Rescuers have already saved at least 500 people as Ian's damage assessment is going on in southwest Florida.
Now take a look at this dangerous rescue, all caught on camera.
You want me to come out? We're good.
This is happening in Naples. And you can see that woman there stuck in the car with the water all the way up over the door handles there. Crews with the town's fire rescue team had to pull her out. And you can see the water rising. The woman must have just been terrified.
That's why they call this flash flooding. It comes on you so quickly.
And I think
the next thing you know, you're trapped.
Right, you may not even know how deep that water is when she pulled in there.
Flash flood warnings, John. We just can never take them for granted.
It's breathtaking. It's just frightening. And, you know, we always say this, too. It puts the first responders in a bad situation, too. And, I mean, we say that over and over again. This is why we're supposed to evacuate. They say evacuate.
Stay in the house. Stay in the house. I think this is something that we're all very much learning. You know, I did not see the big looky-loos type people ever at the beach I have seen in Matthew and Irma. I tend to get out into these storms almost instantly if I can, and I'd spent hours out there in the water in rain here today. Just saw people staying home, and I loved it because there was just no need to be out in it. It wasn't, first of all, it's A, not that spectacular. B, I saw 2 tree limbs come down in front of my car. Now, granted, it was about a half mile up the road, but I saw them flop onto the road, an indication that had there been bigger crowds, somebody might have been there at the wrong time. So, again, staying home, one of the big stories here that I think people took heed to, and I'm glad to see that. We're getting experience. Matthew, Irma, and now the nor'easter last year, that just took place last October, November. Big time type of rains and winds. And of course, in St. Augustine here tonight, the rains are still coming down. The water has receded. Next high tide is 11:35, so that means we're at dead low tide right now. The range in St. Augustine is pretty big. If you've ever gone and walked down there towards the edge of the river, and it's the Matanza River right there near the foot of the base of the Bridge of Lions, you will see the tide really come up and down. So we're at that low point coming up here at midnight tonight, despite the fact that winds are shifting offshore, which is a positive. We want to see that help to push the water out. The next high tide won't be quite to the extreme that we had seen here at midnight or at noon today, but tonight's midnight high tide will cause flooding in the downtown area. I am sure of that. This is over at Jacksonville Beach. This is live, our beach cam. If you look ever so close, it's hard to see, but there's just a wisp of white right in through here. That sand coming over the dune that's being whipped on the beach as, again, the winds remaining gusty, sustained at 30, 40 miles an hour, sustained with those gusts up to 60. Anybody who lives along the beaches know that if they've looked out in their front or backyard, it's palm frond city. It's all been piling off the trees and down on the ground, and there's going to be a lot of that. And this is live out there in Doctors Lake Marina on the St. Johns River, and you can see, again, tides running about a foot and a half above. And note the air temperature here. The temperatures are coming on down. Richard and I high-fiving in the parking lot as we exchange going from one shift to the next, and both of us looked at each other like, oh my goodness, it's cold out here. He said it was 59 degrees in Palatka at the time. So again, cold air on the backside of this particular storm system. There's always these weird side stories. And of course, I think the cold, dry air that was built up in through parts of Georgia and the southeast has helped what deflected Ian back out to the east. This is a live look at Exact Track 4D. Note the lightning out here in the coastal waters is an indication the storm is once again starting to re-intensify. It is labeled as a hurricane again, but it's going to stay way out there to the east of us, and it's only going to throw back a little bit more moisture back into the Jacksonville area. The rains that we're seeing there at the beach, they'll continuously take place until about 10 o'clock tonight. The whole storm rolls into Charleston. Could be some extreme flooding all the way up the east coast towards Wilmington, and that includes from Myrtle Bay, I should say from North Myrtle Beach, all the way back down there towards Sullivan's Island and extending towards Charleston itself. The exact track still seems to be something just around the downtown area of Charleston, which is not like Hugo, because this is just a Category 1 hurricane, Hugo Cat 4, but the intensity and the storm surge that we've seen here locally is likely to translate up the coast as well. Note our rains are really tapering off here. Brunswick, Georgia could potentially pick up another inch of rain, but you haven't seen that much. Again, the storm taking just enough of a turn to the east and then turning towards the north to kind of avoid producing big problems in Georgia. So Brunswick, Georgia spared all the way down there towards Fernandina, where they did see and continually will see at high tide coming up here tonight at midnight, some flooding there in Fernandina. But the big rains and again, the potential here will be all the way back out to the north. And so it goes. Head to bed tonight, stay indoors, don't go running around outdoors. Remember, the winds are going to remain strong. We could have gusts of wind up to around 50 miles an hour. That would be off the peak around 60 miles an hour. But tree limbs are weakened and they could still come down. And in the dark of night, you don't want that falling on your head. Improving weather coming up here for tomorrow, to say the least. Still gusty winds, but now it's an offshore breeze and the conditions should improve. Even though there's a big high tide coming up here tomorrow in St. Augustine, I do think it'll get close to the levels that we've seen here today, but probably just about 6-8 inches less. It'll still cause serious problems in the downtown area, but after that high tide, with the winds pushing offshore, things will improve significantly there, out there towards St. Augustine. And by the time we get to Saturday and Sunday, what a weekend forecast we've got for you. Conditions are really going to turn around in a heartbeat as we look at next week. Daytime temperatures will be in the 80s. By the way, note the early morning temperatures as we're seeing right now. Very comfortably cool temperatures here tonight. Yes, you could almost open up your window if you have the ability to do without rain coming in. Beaches will still stay rainy up to about 10 o'clock, but Clay County downtown to the west of town and all the way up and west of 95 with temperatures in the 60s and 50s going into next week. We're not only going to get a break from all the heat, humidity, and the tropics, we're going to get a taste of fall as we head into next week. All right, we'll have much more to come in the next half hour. We're going to look back and see how that damage took place in Southwest Florida. And, of course, Tom and Mary will be back here in just moments. We'll see you soon.
I'm Lakeisha Burton, and I'm ready to change the JSO and bring violent crime under control. In law enforcement, it doesn't make sense to keep doing things that don't work. In the last 7 years, the guy running against me has spent $500 million to see violent crime go up 19% and Jacksonville become the murder capital of Florida. His approach is reactive and clumsy, and it doesn't work. I will change the culture of the JSO from the inside out. I will make Jacksonville safer.
When the I-Team investigates, results happen.
Do you feel bad taking money from people?
I don't know how much money you saved me, but at least $400.
Very, very, very happy. Thanks to you guys. So you started it.
Fighting for what's right, standing up for local families.
The governor signing into law was something that came out of an I-Team investigation.
You guys did a great job.
Y'all, jump right on it.
I-Team get results.
The News 4 Jax I-Team. Uncovering, exposing, getting results.
President Biden warned just a few hours ago Ian may have caused, in his words, substantial loss of life and could wind up being the deadliest hurricane in Florida's history.
The final death toll is not yet known. Right now, according to Governor DeSantis' office, it stands at 12, we're seeing more and more of the rescue efforts. Take a look at the long line of ambulances and other emergency vehicles ready to enter Naples to help those in need, and there are many. And this video is from Osceola County. Airboats being used to rescue families from their flooded homes. You can see the water almost up to their knees as the crews pull small children off that boat. We're going to take a brief break. We'll be right back with more coverage of Ian just ahead.
But first, we want to show you new video. This is from Sanibel Island. That's the Sanibel Causeway there. The only way in or out of the island completely collapsed. You can see the Gulf water splashing over some of the rubble. We'll be right back.
I'm Lakeisha Burton, and I'm ready to change the JSO and bring violent crime under control. In law enforcement, it doesn't make sense to keep doing things that don't work. In the last 7 years, the guy running against me has spent $500 million to see violent crime go up 19% and Jacksonville become the murder capital of Florida. His approach is reactive and clumsy, and it doesn't work. I will change the culture of the JSO from the inside out. I will make Jacksonville safer.
News for Jax celebrates all the great people who are making a positively Jax difference. Like John Marcus, who has not let life's challenges stop him from helping others. Working with mothers who have lost their children to gun violence.
Just share my story with them and just let them know that anything they going through, no matter what their situation is, they can still stay strong. Thankful for life, family, friends, just being alive.
Join the Pause Jax movement. Sign up and sign in to News for Jax Insider today.
News 4 Jax starts right now with a breaking news alert.
And breaking right now at 6:30, we are in continuous coverage as we watch the damage come to light after Hurricane Ian ripped through southwest Florida. Just take a look. This is in San Carlos Island, and you can see homes underwater, boats everywhere, the destruction stretching for miles. And this aerial photo is taken from a Coast Guard helicopter over Sanibel. Hundreds of homes without roofs, thousands of trees knocked down, stripped of their leaves and palm fronds as the community begins to assess the damage. And parts of our viewing area are still under various watches and warnings tonight.
All across the state, we're seeing devastating flooding. Governor DeSantis referred to it as a 500-year flood event just a few hours ago. We have crews all across the state and here in our area covering the aftermath of the storm. We want to get you right to Assistant Chief Meteorologist David Hecker. David, you talked about the rain stopping soon.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're seeing out there. The rainfall is beginning to wind down across much of the area as this kind of outer rain band's just hugging the coastline of basically southeast Georgia and northeast Florida. Been trying it all afternoon long here on Exact Track 4D. In fact, we'll zoom in even tighter to the Jacksonville area. We are definitely clearing things out in terms of the rainfall. Still got a lot of cloud cover over the downtown area, Pecan Park, Dinsmore, back down towards the Deerwood Club area. But you just get right up against the beach. That's where this band of rain remains in place. Now, the heavier rain is sitting out here into parts of the Atlantic, but it is still almost a light, steady rain And I want you to notice something here on our laps. Notice how the rain band is almost stopped a little bit. So that's an indication we may have a little bit more to go here if you live right along A1A from Atlantic Beach all the way down through Jacksonville Beach. And you can see this band of rain kind of lining up almost perfectly with our coastline. Ponte Vedra seeing some rain, but you get out towards Palm Valley, it's more sprinkles. And then down towards the south, they are seeing a little bit more rainfall in South Ponte Vedra Beach. And even further to the south here as we get into St. Augustine, the rainfall again right up against St. Augustine Beach there. And in fact, in St. Augustine, where we've had significant flooding in the downtown area, that flood or flash flood warning remains in effect until 9 o'clock. But as John mentioned, we're probably going to be dealing with more flooding in the downtown area during high tide in the 11 o'clock midnight hour. We are seeing some improvement down here into parts of the Palm Coast area. So the good news is the heavier rainfall is heading out across the area. The bad news is we still have a lot of wind across the area, and that wind is not going anywhere heading to the remainder of the evening hours. So the threat is still going to be there for some power outages, tree limbs, and possibly even whole trees coming down, especially if you live in a saturated area. Here are the wind speeds over the last hour. So we're a sustained 24 in Jacksonville, 32 in Augustine and St. Augustine. But the wind gusts still in the 40s in many areas. We have a 43-mile-an-hour gust recently in downtown, or excuse me, out at the Jacksonville International Airport. 49-mile-an-hour wind gusts in St. Augustine. And even in inland areas where we haven't seen a ton of rainfall today, we are seeing gusts still hanging out in the 30s. So that wind isn't going anywhere. And if you're just joining us this evening, Ian is right back to a hurricane. It's Category 1 storm now into parts of the Atlantic. Want to stress, though, this does not change our forecast because Ian's going to stay well offshore. Its closest pass to Jacksonville is probably in the early morning hours tonight, but notice by Friday afternoon it's making landfall here into portions of Charleston, and then it's going to be history, it looks like, heading into the weekend. So here's what you need to know here this evening. Again, rainfall, there's actually be updated for basically the coastline. It was going to continue to exit as we head into the evening hours. Overnight, mostly dry and pretty windy out there with the worst wind right at the coast. And we're probably going to see another high tide event for some of our coastal areas as well, heading into that 11 o'clock midnight 1 a.m. time period. I'll be back. We'll show you a little bit more in depth here on Exact Track 4D when things really begin to shut down in terms of wind and some better weather ahead. We'll have that for you coming up in about 15 minutes.
David, thank you.
Ian has been dumping heavy rain in St. Johns County all day, and St. Augustine is swamped. The city is still under a flash flood warning until at least 9 o'clock tonight.
And we're about 30 minutes into low tide there as we see some of the water receding. Eric Avenay is there now. And Eric, you've seen some high water there in the city.
Yeah, right now we're on San Marco Boulevard. We're finally able to make it downtown. As you can tell, the winds are really whipping up. We're experiencing what appears to be like 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts. But the good news is that all of this is finally drivable. You have to remember, it was just hours ago that all of this was completely underwater after the Matanzas River overflowed into this area of downtown, which normally happens anytime there's a major storm. I want to bring you this way just to give you an idea of what some of the stuff that we're able to see here. Take a look at this. This is actually a sailboat that has now, it appears to have crashed into the wall here. We're going to bring this around a little bit. You can just see the damage to the hull there. You can see the whole thing is just on its side. And if we can, there's something else I want to show you too. Take a look at if we can bring the camera, all of this right here from here all the way back. If we can swing the camera back this way here, you'll notice that these railings here, all of this stuff has just been pushed over by some of the heavier winds. Obviously, the amount of rain has been coming down. Now, I do want to say, I'm going to bring you back down here for a second because I do want to say that even though this area is free of floodwater, I will tell you that just beyond this here intersection here, there is still some flooding down there. Also, if we can go to some video that was shot a little more than an hour ago, this is just on the outskirts of downtown, the downtown area here, where you've got some of those side streets that are still dealing with some very significant flooding, vehicles trying to get through. You've got people walking in that stuff. You've got some people even kayaking and some of that stuff. Look at this camera here. Look at this guy right here. If we can swing the camera back here. We had a guy here. He was, I don't know what he was doing, but I guess he was surfing or something. But anyhow, we're seeing a lot of that kind of stuff going on in some of the side streets. In fact, I spoke with one lady who was trying to get to the store. I want you to hear what she had to say about all this madness. What do you think of all this?
It's incredibly amazing and scary at the same time. I remember Matthew and Irma. Nothing like this has been before. My father is also a judge in St. Johns County. He's a drug court judge, and he was telling me that the railroads have never been flooded before. in a lifetime in St. Augustine. So it's pretty crazy, actually.
And what are you doing out here?
I'm going to the grocery store to try to find milk for my toddler right now.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm going to try to head up north to Jack, so.
Now, I will tell you, one of the things that's so interesting about being out here, now that you can actually get out here, more people are coming out. Let's go ahead and swing the camera around. Obviously, as we were talking about this boat here, look at the spectacle here. Everybody wants to come see the boat that is badly damaged as it sits up here against the wall here. We've seen quite a bit of this here. In fact, let me see if we can get an impromptu interview here. Hey, how you doing today, sir?
Doing good.
Yeah, we're live on News for Jackson. I want to ask you, what brings you out here in all this madness?
I wanted to come see everything.
What do you think?
It's pretty crazy. It's not as bad as I thought, though.
Did you have a hard time getting downtown at first? Because I know a lot of us were having a hard time getting in earlier.
A little bit, but it wasn't so bad. We have a four-wheel drive, so.
You set up a little bit higher?
Yeah.
Gotcha. All right, what's your name, man? Xander, what? Well, be safe out here, man, all right?
You too.
All right, yeah, we're going to be out here throughout the evening. Of course, we do know from some tweets that went out from the St. Augustine Police Department that they're asking people to be very careful as the night goes on, because they expect high tide to roll back in here, which means all of this at some point is probably going to be flooded once more. But again, there are still some side streets just getting to this location that are very hard to navigate because the water is still that high. Reporting live in downtown St. Augustine, Eric Avanier, Channel 4, the local station.
Eric, thanks.
The beach communities around St. Augustine have also been enduring heavy weather all day long.
Yeah, let's go to Marilyn Parker now in Volano Beach. So, Marilyn, you've been seeing heavy wind and rain that hasn't slowed.
Yeah, it hasn't stopped, but as you can see, I'm standing in a mini pond right now. There is flooding. I'm standing on Loja Street. This is between Manresa Road and Genoa Road, and as you can see, just look, it is covered with water right now, well up onto the sidewalks on both sides. Take a look at this mailbox here. You can see it's coming up just above that last number. Just to give you some perspective, I'm about 5'3" maybe. The water's coming right to my calf muscle right here. Go ahead and take a look at some video we shot, some different angles of the flooding. I want people to know that getting to these spots, it wasn't as bad. You can navigate through Volano Beach, but it's just coming to these different locations, these lower lying areas where you're starting to see the flooding. You can see different angles of the water really piling up. Some of it did recede, but also just a few streets over on Palencia, you started to see some power lines leaning over. That was really scary. We didn't stay over there too long. They had some caution tape up around there, but again, as the wind was strong, it kept teeter-totting that pole basically up and down. We didn't know if it was going to drop down at any minute. The power lines were very low on the road, so we wanted to make sure that, one, we weren't in that area when it possibly came down. And like David said, the wind is going to continually be strong here throughout the afternoon. The rain hasn't stopped. So these conditions are going to continue to worsen and show some of the different things. Now, like I said, it did recede some, and we know that low tide is about to happen within the next 30 to 45 minutes. And so maybe that's going to make some changes. But again, getting to these areas, it's not bad. But when you find spots like this, obviously some people are risking it driving right through. We've seen some people come from different side in big trucks and saying, hey, they can do it. We didn't test it out with our news car, but as you can see, I'm standing in what is obviously a lower lying area in a lot of flood water. So these are just some of the things to keep in mind when you're going through this area. We're going to continue to bring you more of these stories. We're going to be heading over to St. Augustine Beach right after this to check out the situation there. I also spoke with St. Johns County officials who let me know about power outages in this area. They have linemen working, trying to figure out what the power outages situations will be and restoring power to those who need it. So be sure to keep an eye on that as well. We're live in Volano Beach. Marilyn Parker, Channel 4, the local station.
Thank you, Marilyn.
We're going to take a quick break from our continuous coverage of Ian.
But first, we want to show you this startling look at the storm's power. Look at this. It's the Flagler Pier being ripped apart. Now, Flagler County officials are warning people not to try to travel to the pier to see the damage to it in person. We'll be right back.
I'm I'm Lakeisha Burton, and I'm ready to change the JSO and bring violent crime under control. In law enforcement, it doesn't make sense to keep doing things that don't work. In the last 7 years, the guy running against me has spent $500 million to see violent crime go up 19% and Jacksonville become the murder capital of Florida. His approach is reactive and clumsy, and it doesn't work. I will change the culture of the JSO from the inside out. I will make Jacksonville safer.
They've got class.
With underwear, anything but white is unacceptable. In that case, I better change.
Stay classy with the Gentlemen of 2.5 Men.
Weeknights at 5 and 5:30 on CW17.
App Store. Exact Track 4D detects dangerous weather days ahead of time, so you can make the right plans for your family.
And so Ian's rains have been pounding down for so many across the state and in our area as well. And then there are some neighborhoods that just haven't even had a drop.
Yeah,
David, you did tell us that this was going to happen like this.
We really thought once we kind of locked in on that eastern track away from Jacksonville, that the heavy rains were going to end up being kind of along and east of 95, and that's exactly what we saw today. And yeah, you get out towards the west, especially the I-75 corridor, almost not a drop of rainfall. And keep in mind, just to the south of us, Orlando ended up with some places, I think when it's all said and done, over 20 inches of rain. And I think areas in southwest Florida probably ended up with almost 25 inches of rain. So Ian ended up being a prolific rainmaker. And you can see here on Exact Track 40, kind of almost a gradient right through the heart of Duval County. Some areas did not pick up much rain at all. In fact, let me show you some of the data here. West side of town, I think that's actually a little bit bearish at 4 inches here. You can see out towards Jacksonville Beach, though, a different storyline. We're talking about over 4 inches of rain, over 4 inches as well as you get out towards the south there. But then down into parts of St. Johns County, where we've seen the flooding issues, Flagler County, where we've seen the big flooding issues, that's where the rain has really begun to pile up here. In fact, St. Augustine radar indicated almost 7 inches and change now, almost 6.5 inches in western sections of the county, and then all the way down towards Palm Coast, again, almost 8 inches of rainfall. So the rain has really piled up in this purple area. You can almost draw a line from about Nocatee, World Golf Village, and then points to the south into parts of St. John and Flagler counties. Now, we are still tracking some rain out there on Exact Track 4D, but the rainfall has significantly been reduced, and a lot of it is kind of confined to the exact coastline. In fact, really beginning to dry out in the heart of the city. Get out towards Jax Beach, Neptune Beach, though different storyline. And I want to put this into motion for you real quick, because notice in the last hour, the rain has kind of basically actually become almost stationary here. So that tells me that we probably are going to have another hour or two minimum of this rain band kind of sitting right on top of our coastline from just north of St. Augustine all the way up into parts of Fernandina Beach, and this extends all the way north now into St. Simon's Island, kind of knocking on the door of the Brunswick area. So if you live right up against A1A and the coastline, that's going to be the best threat for rain, I think, heading into the rest of the evening hours. And even here, eventually, this will begin to slowly pull off into parts of the Atlantic. The other headline that's been kind of surprising, of course, or excuse me, not surprising, has been the flooding. And you can see we're beginning to dry out here in St. Augustine, but the high tide will come back at 11:30. So don't let this fool you. We are not done with the flooding in downtown St. Augustine. We once again will probably see this come right back at us as we get towards that 9 and 10 o'clock hour. And you can see the waves pretty close there to the Bridge of Lions. And then out at Jacksonville Beach, boy, still some rainfall, as we just showed you an exact track, 40, 70 degrees, steady northerly winds at 36 miles an hour, as we've been saying for a while. Even if the rain ends in your area, just a good evening to stay home here. And we've seen some cool air get drug in courtesy of the outer edge of Ian. In fact, look at this, down to 63 in Jacksonville. Brunswick has tumbled to 59, and then you just get a little bit away from Ian. Valdosta currently sitting at 70 degrees. So as Ian begins to pull away, temperatures may actually tick up a little bit here later on this evening. Ian is still on track to become, actually has become, a Category 1 hurricane. It is going to make landfall, it looks like, near Charleston heading into Friday afternoon. So the closest pass to Jacksonville will likely be in the early morning hours, and then it's history Friday night heading into Saturday. Here is Futurecast again, 9 o'clock, that rain band right up against the coastline here. So we may still have some rain between now and about 9. Then it begins to pull away from portions of the Atlantic, maybe some leftover rain in far, far areas of southeast Georgia, up against the coast near Brunswick. And then you can see this activity fades away. Some cloud cover early on, and then we're going to see, I think, a heavy dose of sunshine heading into Friday. It will stay windy, though, especially up in Georgia. So improving conditions on your Friday. Weekend still looking great with temperatures in the 80s. And I promise much calmer conditions heading into next week. More news for Jax at 6:30 coming up after the break.
I'm Lakeisha Burton, and I'm ready to change the JSO and bring violent crime under control. In law enforcement, it doesn't make sense to keep doing things that don't work. In the last 7 years, the guy running against me has spent $500 million to see violent crime go up 19% and Jacksonville become the murder capital of Florida. His approach is reactive and clumsy, and it doesn't work. I will change the culture of the JSO from the inside out. I will make Jacksonville safer.
In 2022, join us in Random Jacks of Kindness, a year-long commitment to paying it forward with acts big and small. Practice Random Jacks of Kindness. Sign the pledge on PositivelyJacks.com.
Local students scheduled to take the SAT this weekend will have a few more days to study.
All students already registered to take Saturday's test have been registered for the makeup exam on October 14th. If your testing center canceled the exam, you will receive a notification where your makeup exam will be held. Duval County school administrators announced just a few hours ago they are still unsure if students will have class Monday.
They're planning to start surveying any damage to the more than 150 school buildings across the county, and they will then make a decision Saturday on when students will return. Now, we have not heard similar plans from other counties, all of which have closed school tomorrow.
As we head to break, let's take another look at exact track 4D radar.
You can see Ian continuing to move off our coast as we see the end of its direct impacts in our area. Hundreds of people here will have to work to rebuild what was damaged and clean up the mess, like this uprooted tree on the south.
I'm Lakeisha Burton, and I'm ready to change the JSO and bring violent crime under control. In law enforcement, it doesn't make sense to keep doing things that don't work. In the last 7 years, the guy running against me has spent $500 million to see violent crime go up 19% and Jacksonville become the murder capital of Florida. His approach is reactive and clumsy, and it doesn't work. I will change the culture of the JSO from the inside out. I will make Jacksonville safer.
Hey, we love you because you keep it real.
He's spending all his money on strippers.
I don't chase no women because you give him your money.
Free!
Judge Mathis, weekdays at 1 on CW17.
David will return at 7 o'clock in just a few minutes, and again at 8 for an update on Ian. Then we will continue to follow the damage in southwest Florida.